My stepdaughter helped my husband hide his affair, so I took her college fund. Now they're begging me to forgive them. Hello Reddit. I need your aid right now since I'm in a difficult situation with my stepdaughter and don't know what to do. For reference, I, 42F, have spent 15 years with my soon-to-be ex-husband David, 44M. We've been married for 10 of those 15 years, and I loved him more than anybody else in the world. He has a daughter, Stacy, 17F, from a prior relationship. He and Stacy's mother were never married. They had a brief fling for a few months, but she became pregnant and opted to keep the baby. They'd split up just a few weeks before she discovered she was pregnant. They chose to maintain a friendly relationship so that they could co-parent the baby. Unfortunately, Stacy's mother died in a vehicle accident when Stacy was only 6 months old, leaving only David and his daughter. He informed me at the start of our relationship that he wasn't just searching for a wife, but also someone who would be a wonderful mother to Stacy. I was willing to do it since I adored children, and Stacy was only 2 at the time. I honestly didn't mind that he had a daughter. I was prepared to accept her as my own and raise her accordingly. I took our relationship extremely seriously from the start. After 5 years together, we decided to marry. Our relationship had ups and downs, but at the end of the day I believed he loved me as much as I loved him. I had no cause to suspect he might be cheating on me. Even a few months ago, we were discussing commemorating our 10th wedding anniversary with a family trip to some exotic location, and he was really pleased about it. People who cheat on their wives don't seem to be enthused about a family trip, so I didn't expect this. I discovered 6 days ago that he had been cheating on me with a coworker for the past 7 months. I was at work, minding my own business, when I received an email from a coworker. It contained all of the specifics of their affair. She even supplied documentation of text exchanges, phone calls, and images of them together at locations on days when he claimed he was abroad on business, but those excursions were actually romantic getaways with her, which I had known about. I was stunned when I received the email. I instantly went home, unsure what else to do. Nobody was home at the time because Stacy was out with a friend and David was working. So I examined those emails carefully again because I didn't want to have a breakdown at work. I noticed she had also included her phone number in case I wished to call her. She explained that she was doing this because she knew David would never tell me, and she believed I deserved to know the truth. David had apparently been promising her for the last 6 months that he would tell me the truth and discontinue our relationship since she was uncomfortable having an affair with a married guy. I think her conscience had kicked in, or something, but David kept promising to tell me. I even saw screenshots of him indicating he was ending our marriage to be with her. She had initially believed him, but after nearly 3 months of waiting, she decided to inform me herself. After reading that email, I reflected on it for a time before calling her because the worst had already happened. I was still in denial, so I figured speaking with her would help me realize this wasn't a cruel prank, it was actually happening. When I spoke with her, she began by apologizing and explaining that she had no intention of hurting my marriage and had simply fallen in love with David. That was why she believed I deserved to know the truth. She went on to detail how the affair began, how long it had lasted, and all of the promises he had made to her, which were identical to those he had made to me at the outset of our relationship. My heart broke with each word she whispered to me. By the end of the conversation, I was certain there could be nothing more painful. But then she revealed that Stacy had been aware of everything and had been assisting him in concealing his activities. That really destroyed me since, in my opinion, I had always been Stacy's mom. I never thought of her as a stepdaughter. I had known that girl since she was 2 years old and raised her as my own. So the fact that she had also deceived me felt like the end of the world. His coworker informed me that whenever David needed to lie to me or cover up something, Stacy would make excuses for his absence and explain why he wasn't returning my calls. In exchange for her silence, he offered her expensive gifts. That explained a lot of recent events. David had been completely indulging her, which had never happened before, but I assumed he was doing well at work, so he was buying her lovely stuff. He had also bought me a lot of jewelry and clothes, so I assumed his new practice of giving us presents was due to his success at business, but apparently not. Knowing Stacy had been a part of this and had met her father's affair partner multiple times while keeping it a secret from me devastated my heart much more than realizing David had been cheating on me. After that phone call, I decided to pack my belongings and leave the house since I did not want to be there any longer, waiting for the two of them to return home. I felt terribly betrayed and could not stop crying. I didn't want David to have the satisfaction of seeing me like that, so I packed a few items and drove to a motel outside of town. I shut off my phone since I did not want to be called. I was upset that day and ended up drinking myself to sleep in my hotel room. The next morning, I had to switch my phone back on to report ill to work. That's when I discovered I had 1,000 unanswered texts and missed calls from David and Stacy, and I didn't want to respond to any of them. I also noticed a text message from a person at the auto dealership with whom I had been discussing purchasing a new vehicle. I had been putting off making the purchase since I wanted to save more money before buying it, which was pricey. I had also been saving for our anniversary trip and Stacy's 17th birthday, intending to give her a new automobile rather than buying one for myself. When I got that SMS, I remembered how I had planned to gift Stacy a car for her birthday, which made me angry. In a fit of rage, I decided to concentrate on making myself happy without regard for anyone else. The guy from the dealership had inquired if I was still intending on buying the car, and on a whim, I went down to the dealership and purchased a sparkling new luxury car. I hadn't planned to buy it because it was well out of my price range, but I didn't have to worry about it. Since I married David 10 years ago, I've been saving for Stacy's college education. I had intended to offer her access to that account as a surprise when she announced which college she would be attending. But now that I knew what had been going on for the past few months, I didn't want to surprise anyone except myself. I took money from that account to buy the fancy car, which I then drove to our house to face David and Stacy. When I arrived, they attempted to hug me and tell me how worried they were, but I didn't let them. I instantly revealed that David's coworker had contacted me, and I now knew the whole extent of what had been going on behind my back. I was quite unhappy with both of them. They both looked shocked. David, at least, had the foresight not to say anything because he knew the game was up. Stacy tried to speak with me, stating she was only trying to look out for her father and didn't know what to do. She burst into tears, claiming she was confused because she loved us both equally and wanted us to be happy, but I didn't believe her. I assumed she was mature enough to understand what was good and wrong, and she purposefully chose to do the opposite. Furthermore, I'm very sure the presents she was receiving from her father helped her keep quiet about the whole affair. I told her I didn't believe a word she was saying. I was so furious off and upset that I announced my departure from David. He should have seen it coming, because I doubt anyone in my position would have stayed after learning something like this. I informed Stacy that, more than David, I was disappointed in her. Husbands cheat all the time, and this isn't the first or last time a woman will experience it. But I'd always expected Stacy to have my back. Despite the fact that we were not blood relatives, I had never considered her to be my stepdaughter. I had loved her as much as my own, if not more. Her deception and betrayal affected me more than anything her father did. So I determined that the education fund I had been saving for her over the years was no longer something she deserved. I was leaving them both behind. It was difficult for me to say that, and I almost cried up because this had been my family for the last 15 years. But after telling her, I walked out without giving them the opportunity to explain and returned to the hotel. They kept phoning, but I refused to stop. They even followed me out, and I'm fairly certain they saw the new automobile I purchased. I drove away as fast as I could. After that, I wanted to block them, but I couldn't since I was still emotionally processing everything. They've been attempting to contact me for the past 5 days, texting virtually every hour and calling me, but I'm at a loss for words. So I just read all of their messages and left it at that. David had been trying to persuade me to forgive him for the first several days, but when he saw it was fruitless, he began apologizing and admitting that I deserved better. However, he began pleading with me to reconsider what I was doing to Stacy, stating she was only a child and did not deserve to suffer as a result of his acts. Stacy has also texted me along the same lines, confessing her mistake and requesting a second chance. She says she has always thought of me as her mother and is deeply sorry for everything. I had been ignoring everything, but yesterday I received a text from David saying he was tired of apologizing without getting a response. He demanded to know if I had any intention of returning to the family. That irritated me because he was the one who made a mistake, and he had no right to be angry with me. I instantly texted him back, claiming that I had already spoken with a lawyer and filed for divorce, which was false. I was still processing things and hadn't had the opportunity to consult with a lawyer yet, but he didn't need to know that. He didn't respond for about an hour, and when he did, he sent me a lengthy message accusing me of being selfish and the villain for responding in this manner. He stated he was fine with me filing for divorce and leaving him, but the fact that I chose to leave Stacy behind demonstrated how selfish I was. He told me that Stacy had been upset since I left, and that my unwillingness to allow her access to the college monies I had been accumulating for her had hurt her very hard. He was aware of the college fund but had not bothered to save enough money for her tuition because he trusted me to handle it. I remember mentioning the college fund to him countless times. He knew I had been saving cash to surprise Stacy, but I had no idea he had not saved anything for her school. Now that Stacy is considering going to college out of state, which would be even more expensive, it's unclear whether she will be able to attend her preferred college. David believes I am the evil guy for taking away the college fund and shoving it in her face. He doesn't understand why I won't let her have access to the money since I've always planned to give it to her. To him, it appears like I am using this one error to be selfish, especially since he saw my new automobile. He believes I should reconsider. Now I am torn on what to do. According to his words, I don't feel comfortable taking things away from a child only to teach them a lesson or punish them. I've never been that type of parent and I don't want to start now. However, Stacy is not quite a child. She realized what she was doing was wrong. I do not know. I feel like she's terribly disappointed me and perhaps what I'm doing isn't that bad. I'm just really perplexed. Is it wrong of me to tell my stepdaughter that I would no longer fund her college tuition after discovering she helped my husband cover up his affair? Update 1. Hello, I apologize for not being able to provide you with an update during the last 2 weeks. It was only that I had been quite busy with job and dealing with my lawyer, so there was a lot on my plate. But now I've got some time. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who commented on my initial article and gave me so much love and support. I am grateful from the bottom of my heart. Knowing that there were people who supported me, even if they were complete strangers, made things much simpler to live with. So when David texted me and I posted, I felt I didn't need to entertain any of it. Most of the comments on my article stated the same thing. I needed to block him and file for divorce as soon as possible so I could finally get him out of my life. And this is exactly what I did. Within the next several days I had consulted with a lawyer and filed for divorce. I also concluded I didn't owe Stacy anything. Even if I were her biological parent, I would not have given her money to go her dream college. She should have considered these things before assisting her father in cheating on me. You cannot stab me in the back and expect me to turn around and grin. I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter how old or who you are. That's simply not how this works. David's allegation that Stacy was being punished for what he did was incorrect. She was being punished for what she had done, and I made it abundantly obvious when I last met with them in person. I declined to give her the college fund since she opted not to inform me about her father's infidelity. That is the reason, and I believe I'm being fair. If they want to be angry about it, they are free to do so, but I will not tolerate it, which is why I blocked them. They now have absolutely no access to me. They are still attempting to reach me by calling from different numbers, messaging from new numbers, and emailing me from fictitious addresses. It doesn't matter, because all I do is read the texts and emails while ignoring everything else. Update 2. I eventually found out what was going to happen with the divorce, and happily, David is not opposing anything. I hope we can have a calm and amicable divorce. It's been about 3 weeks since I discovered he was cheating on me, and my life has drastically changed. I had been living at a motel until last week, but it was becoming too expensive. Even though I had enough money to remain for a few more weeks or months, I opted not to waste it. So I moved in with a buddy, who has graciously allowed me to stay until I can get my own apartment. I've also begun to contemplate therapy for myself after a buddy, who is a licensed professional, told me it would benefit me in the long term. I am thinking about it. Perhaps the most significant change was that I quit my job. It is a tremendous issue because I have been working non-stop for almost 20 years. I began working immediately after graduating from college, and I had previously worked part-time. But I believe I need a break right now. I've accumulated enough money over the last 10 years to take a few months off, reorganize my life and launch my own business. That had always been the plan, but I decided to put it off until Stacy left for college so I wouldn't have to worry about money. Now that no one is holding me back, I can do whatever I want. So there's the plan. I'm going to spend these months developing a business model, looking for investors, and all that jazz. I'm actually looking forward to the future, even though I'm still sad about everything that has happened. I have also spoken with my parents about the divorce. I hadn't told them previously since I was still processing everything, but after speaking with them I posted an announcement on social media. I did not explain why, I simply stated that I was getting divorced. My close friends and family are already aware of what is going on, and they are the only people I care about, so what others say is irrelevant. Life has been complicated for the past few weeks, but now that the divorce proceedings have begun and we will meet with a mediator in the coming days, I'm hoping to be able to put this behind me and finally move on. Update 3. Hello, David and I are planning to meet with the mediator tomorrow. It's strange knowing that I'll have to face him after nearly a month of no communication. As if I wasn't apprehensive and concerned enough before the meeting, Stacy sent me an email only half an hour ago. She stopped contacting me after 2.5 weeks, and I assumed she was no longer interested in chatting with me. I assumed this email was about how she intended to pay for her college fees, but to my amazement, she texted me a thorough apology, and this time it appeared sincere. She didn't say anything about the finances. Stacy stated she was really sorry for what she had done, confessing she had been selfish and hadn't considered how I would feel if I found out the truth. She realized she had crushed my heart much more than David had and wondered if she would ever be able to put things right with me. She did, however, mean it when she stated she had always looked up to me as a mother and truly loved me. She also stated that she was aware that David's presents were manipulative and that his affair partner had made it appear as if she was doing it on her own. However, she argued that it was due to manipulation rather than a desire to keep secrets from me. I'm not sure what to trust. Maybe she was manipulated, which is why she didn't say anything. She insisted on being confused, caught between knowing her father was wrong but not wanting to oppose him. In doing so, she betrayed me and had been conflicted for months. I want to believe her, I truly do, but with everything that has transpired I'm simply not sure. I was already uneasy and twitchy, but after receiving the email, I feel much strange about everything. I miss her dearly, as I do David, but I know I need to learn how to live life on my own. I've learned the hard way that I can't simply trust people, even my closest ones. I guess I'll have to stick to the no contact rule for now. I also acquired a new apartment and moved in. I've been living by myself for the past few weeks and it's been enjoyable. My friends and relatives pay me visits almost every other day to check on my well-being, which I believe is quite nice of them. I don't feel lonely because I'm usually with someone. However, I know these visits will not be as regular as they are today. I'm still working on accepting the idea that I'm a single lady. I've also started treatment. It will take some time for me to absorb and process everything that has transpired, but I am confident I will get there. I haven't communicated with David since our last mediation session, and while it hasn't been easy, it has been essential. In my last report, I mentioned Stacy's email in which she claimed to have been influenced. At the time, I couldn't bring myself to trust her because everything was so new. But just last week, I decided to respond to her email. She had been sending me additional emails about her life. It felt like a one-way street. She'd keep reaching out, and I'd shut her out. But every time she emailed me, my heart would shatter and I'd cry, even if nothing bad was occurring in her life. I genuinely missed her. So I contacted her and told her I missed her. There's nothing else. I still maintain that she will not receive the college fund, but she stated that she didn't mind and didn't deserve it anyhow. She informed me she chose a college close to home over her chosen school because she did not want to burden her father with student loans. Even if she had asked him to co-sign, he would have refused. He had made that obvious. Stacy noted that they will have to make do with the money they have, and that while David will assist as much as he can, she will also need to contribute by earning her way through college. She stated she was cool with it, or so she claimed. We've been emailing back and forth, and I informed her that I'd like to repair our friendship, but I need time. After everything that has transpired, I simply cannot digest it all right now. She understands and tells me to take as much time as I need, knowing she has abused my confidence. I'm not sure what will happen next, but I'm hoping for the best. Fingers crossed. Now to the next story, story 2. My dad is trying to force my uncontrollable stepsister on my trip, so I cut him off. I, 17F, am graduating and my friends and I have already planned a trip to a cabin for the summer before we start college. I have been a babysitter since I was 13, so I have saved up a considerable amount of money. When I was 15, my dad got remarried about a year and a half after my mom passed away. My dad's wife had a 13-year-old daughter, and as soon as we moved in together they started to push her off on me and force us to do everything together. I don't like my stepsister. She's always throwing tantrums if she doesn't get what she wants. She's spoiled to the point that at my 16th birthday she got her own special cake so she wouldn't feel left out. And she also blew out the candles on my cake, and when I complained my dad told me it's time to grow up, being a sister is about sharing things. I told him I didn't have a sister, and I guess she overheard and she went on a rampage. The party was ruined. I distanced myself more from them after that. I'm forced to either take her with me to places or stay home with her if I can't take her, or my dad or dad's wife can't watch her or don't want to deal with her. Imagine everything that I said she does with my dad and his wife to a 17-year-old me. I was forced to take her bowling with me and she would not stop trying to dig her hands in the part where the balls come out, and she tried running down the lane, so I had to take her home and my night was ruined. This happens a lot, but they don't care. I have tried to keep this trip a secret from her, but when I was in my room on the phone talking about it over pizza and music, I found out she snuck in and hid in the closet and was eavesdropping. She bursted out asking if she could come, and I told her no and to get out. She started stomping her feet and she ran out. My friends begged me to not invite her. My dad called me downstairs and asked if she could go because she could use a vacation, and I told him I'm not taking her. They can take her on a vacation, but I'm not watching her for almost 3 weeks alone. My dad's wife called me selfish and that my dad was paying for a portion of it anyway, and if Lily doesn't go then I don't get to go. I told her she doesn't get a say in any of this. She's not my mom and to stop forcing her child on me when she created what she is. Lily starts yelling at me about not being a big sister and I don't want to spend time with her. I snap and tell her I don't. She ran away crying and my dad said he won't pay for the rest of my trip if I don't take her. So I told him if he does that I will not be talking to him anymore, nor will I forgive him for it. He said I'm being dramatic and she isn't bad. So I grabbed a bag and went to my aunt's house, my mom's sister, and told her what happened, and she said she would put up what he took away and when I go to college, I can stay with her. I told my dad what I was doing and he blew up at me and said I was being a brat and they're my family now and not my aunt. As far as I know, she does not have any disabilities. She's been to doctors and therapy. She's just insanely spoiled and that's how she's always gotten her way when told no. The first time I met her everyone agreed on Mexican except her and she was yelling in the car for 10 minutes before she calmed down by her mom appeasing her. Then she goes back on her phone texting. If she does then that explains why she acts that way and I can take it that she can't help it, but I still shouldn't be forced to watch her 24/7's relevant comments. Commenter, your aunt is acting more of a family than your dad. I agree, see if you can live with your aunt now. Are you dependent on your dad for college? OOP, I am not, my mom left me money for 2 years. I decided to do an RN program and then go back once I work and save up more money. Commenter, if you are being truthful about Lily's behaviors, it sounds like she has some sort of emotional or intellectual impairment. Has she had a formal diagnosis? OOP, no, she is just extremely spoiled and acts like this to get her way. She knows she just has to cry a bit and stomp around and they'll give in. To another commenter, she does not have any mental problems. She's just spoiled. She's been to doctors and therapy. To a deleted and downvoted comment, I don't have nor did I want a sister. It's not even like they tried to slowly bring us together, they forced her on me. She constantly throws tantrums, so if any small thing is about me, she needs to be the center of attention. She may be a child but she is not my child and I shouldn't have had to become a parent because of my dad's wife's lack of parenting. Commenter, how far away from 18 are you? I would slowly start moving important things to your aunt's house and then move in the day you turn 18. Make sure you let your school know not to contact your dad anymore and that you are living with your aunt. Oopie, I turn 18 in September. I have read the comments and I'm making lists of everything I need to get and put at my aunt's house. On being the bigger person, I don't have to be a bigger person. I'm tired of being neglected and having her forced on me. I'm going on this trip without her and if that ends up with me not talking to my dad anymore, so be it, he's the adult and parent here. Update post, August 30th, 2024. Almost 6 months later. I know a lot of people wanted an update to my last post, but I can't post a link so you can go to my profile to see it. The trip happened and I did not end up taking her like I said I wasn't. From the time that I posted that up until the time that I left, the household was very tense and awkward. I was not speaking to any of them. The only person I had to confide in and talk to my aunt, and I'm so grateful for her. My dad still thought that I was going to bring her on the trip and I kept telling him that I'm not watching her and she is not coming with me. The morning of the trip we left at like 6 in the morning when he called me. I was already about 5 hours out so he couldn't do anything. When I got back it was a lot of yelling and crying from me and my dad and his wife. She said that I left them in a tough position and they had to stay home because they couldn't get anyone to watch Lily. My dad and I had a serious talk for hours and he agreed that maybe we need to separate so we can work on our relationship. Which hurt me because I would have liked for him to tell me I can stay in my own home while we do it. But I did end up going to my aunt's house with no issues. My dad and I started family therapy with just the two of us. His wife was pretty upset. He was actually listening to me and was seeing where I was coming from. Right when we were getting good and building a better relationship, I came over for dinner and he asked if we could integrate his wife and Lily into therapy, and I told him that I had no interest in having a relationship with them. She called me a selfish C******, and that I need to be grateful that she let me stay with them after she moved in. I waited for my dad to correct her and he was pretty much silent, so I left and I haven't talked to him in almost a month. He keeps showing me that he will not be on my side. So, to wrap things up, the cabin trip was so much fun. I have never felt so free from a burden. The trip was in June and we were there for almost a month. We extended it. When I was packing for school, my dad came to visit and I guess his wife called and he had to lie about where he was because I guess she didn't want him to see me. So I told him, we don't need to have contact right now or continue therapy because it's clear which part of his family he cares more about. I don't know what's going to become of my dad and right now I don't care. I'm focused on school and studying to become a nurse, I don't want any negativity to ruin this experience, but I'd be lying if I said it doesn't hurt that I don't have a parent to experience this with, but my aunt says she is my surrogate mom and to share all my worries and success with her. I am currently in my first week of college and the amount of freedom I feel here is also so new. I am a little overwhelmed, but I am in an honors club. I also am in a creative writing book club and the friends I have made are so amazing. I am currently living on campus and I have never been better mentally. I am getting separate therapy to deal with my mom's death because that was never offered to me by my dad. My aunt has truly become a mother figure to me. Being 2 states away from her is really hard, but I can't wait for weekend visits and holiday visits. Also, another thing is that I'm going to be a godmother. My aunt was told at 22 that she would never be able to have kids and she is currently 4 months pregnant and I'm so excited because if anybody is going to be a good mother, I know it's going to be her. When she came to visit and tell me I think she saw, I was a little worried. I told her I'm so excited and happy for her and nothing will change that, but she's the only family I have right now and don't want to get left behind like I did at home, and we cried and she promised me that she was filling in for my mom and she will be there for the rest of my life, whether I like it or not. I am planning the baby shower and I can't wait for the baby to be here. But yeah, that's it. Thank all for checking up on me and giving me encouraging words. Relevant comments. Commenter: I just don't understand how your dad doesn't see that Lily is a massive problem if they have to hire a babysitter at her age or being 15. And they were stuck at home with her as a result. OOP, he doesn't want to see it, or he does and cares more about keeping his wife happy. Commenter: also, what do you write about in this writers club? OOP, bring in work you have written and share it. Write flash fiction from the same prompt. Write poems, watch videos or lectures about writing techniques, talk about writing contests or places to submit stories. We're talking about incorporating improv so we can be creative that way with our stories. Commenter: downvoted. I feel like you should have set some better boundaries instead of just giving up. You need to lay it out for him. Do you really think she's good for your life if she's keeping you away from your daughter? Are you really a man and a father? If you're going to let a woman dictate what you can and can't do, I would tell him straight up, you don't have the luxury of giving up because you made me. So I would appreciate if you get a goddamn backbone and start acting like it. OP. That's fair and I respect your opinion, but it's not my job to try and fix anything or set boundaries anymore. We did talk about it in therapy and he still tried to integrate them into the sessions when I have expressed hundreds of times I do not want that, so I'm done trying. I'm the child in this situation. Now to the next story, story 3. I didn't tell my parents about my college money, then my dad stole it, causing an unforgivable betrayal that tore our family apart. Original. Am I the asshole for not telling my parents that I received money from my college? May 14, 2023, I, 20 years old, non-binary, live with my parents, in their 50s, and my 2 sisters, 20 years old and 19 years old. For as long as I can remember, my parents have had financial difficulties. For the past 4 months I have paid the entirety of my parents' rent. While I don't really make that much, I work 50 hours a week most weeks due to understaffing, so I get a pretty good paycheck. Plus most of the time I'm able to set aside some money for saving. However, these past months every one of my dad's paychecks, he makes the most money out of us all, have been garnished or been completely gone before he ever gets them. I have the misfortune of getting paid the exact same days as him. So the majority of my paychecks and all my savings have gone to paying for bills. 2 weeks ago my dad didn't get his paycheck and I ended up overdrawing my bank account $1,000. It was an accident as I had forgotten about a payment that I had made that had yet to show up. So when I got my paycheck on Friday it was just $100. Which my dad immediately asked for 80 of. I had told my parents I would be unable to help financially for the next 2 weeks, and again my dad didn't get his check, so my parents are scrambling to get money together to avoid our utilities being cut off. My college does this thing. I don't know if every college does this or not. Where you pay the full amount of your tuition and then at the end of the semester you get the amount of scholarships and financial aid paid to you. There is a deadline to get the money, however they hold it for you if you miss it. The most of the 2 years I have been going there I have forgotten to do that, so the money has been sitting around. I had missed the December deadline for the fall semester, but I got a jump on spring knowing that I would forget, and it is my last year at that college because I am transferring to another one. I promptly forgot about it. Well, on Friday I received an email from the bank system my college uses that I will be receiving the money. I had shrugged it off because most of the time I receive my money from that kind of stuff really late. So while the email said 1-2 business days, I was thinking it would be in June. So imagine my surprise when I see that that day it was in my account. Also, considering that it has been sitting there for 2 years, it is a fair amount. I am by no means rich or anything, but it was certainly more than I had been expecting. I paid a bill that I just haven't been able to, and the majority is just sitting in my bank account. It's been 2 days and I haven't mentioned anything about the money. My parents never even knew I was getting money from my college due to my forgetfulness. I know that this money could help make sure that none of our utilities are cut off, but I can't seem to bring myself to tell them. I'm moving out soon, so this money could go towards giving me some breathing room or going to my classes this summer, so I really want to save it and not say anything, just let my parents assume that I only have $20 to my name. However, if the utilities get cut off, then I will be affected as well. I feel like such an asshole for not telling my parents about the money. I know that I'm just being selfish, but I am so tired of every penny I make going towards my family's bill. I know my mom feels extremely guilty every time they do this, but it is something they have to do to survive. So, am I the asshole? Edit. Since a lot of people are asking, here you go. My parents have a lot of payday loans from my childhood, other loans, and owe money to the state and IRS. My dad had at one point been accused of a gambling addiction. It runs in his family, and he had at one point had one. However, my parents have talked this out. My dad's company also has shitty communication, so we have no way of knowing when he is garnished and why until he gets paid. Everyone does work, but me and my dad make the most money. My mom works a minimum wage job. My sisters work part-time minimum wage jobs. My mom and 20-year sister do help pay bills. My little sister, however, does not. She is the type that has a little bit of money and goes wild. My parents pay for a lot of her stuff without ever seeing a dime for it. My parents are trying to stop that, however it is extremely difficult due to other factors that I will not get into on this post, as it has nothing to do with money. The reason I make a lot of money is because I'm a lifeguard, and due to the lack of them we are paid intensively. As many of you have suggested, I am moving out. I am moving to a different city this summer for classes. I honestly don't think I need to go to such extremes as some of you suggested. My bank account is separate from theirs. We do use the same bank though. My parents do not try to sneakily get my money, and the few times my dad has, I have called him out and berated him over it. My mom also feels extremely guilty about the entire situation, and as such I don't see her doing anything underhanded, and my dad, I have strict guidelines with him. I do have a ton of notifications for both my credit card and bank account to the point of $1 getting spent. I will know. Also no, I will not be getting back the money that I have given to my parents. I am not even going to try. I'm not going to be another thing that they have to pay off. However, some of your suggestions I will follow. My parents are aware, and I will remind them when I leave that I will not be able to pay things when they leave, as I will be both reducing my hours at work and having my own bills to pay, such as school and the apartment. Relevant comment the _eternal_veggie NTA. You are technically paying for school yourself, right? The student loans and scholarships are all in your name, so that money is yours. Put it into savings, use it to buy textbooks next semester. If it's money left over from your student loans, you'll technically have to pay it back when you start paying your loans. So might as well use it as you please. I received money back from college for a few semesters, like $600/semester. But at that time my parents paid for my tuition, only $1,500/semester, community college, so I just paid them back that money since it was theirs anyway. But when I started paying for myself, I kept that money for myself. OOP, I pay for college out of pocket. I don't have student loans and no one else has paid for my tuition, so it is absolutely my money. Update 1, Wibite for going no contact with my dad and technically being responsible for my parents' divorce. May 27, 2023, posted 13 days later. So I, 20 NB, live with my parents and 2 sisters for now. I am moving out next month. So my dad decided to play a joke on me. He took my card and took out 90% of the money and my money out of my checking account. For those wondering about the college money I got from a previous post, it is in another savings account that is through another institution, so it is safe. He then put my card back in its original position and went to work. He did all of this around midnight. So I woke up in the morning to most of my money being gone. My first thought was that my dad took my card without asking, but my card was still in my wallet and where I left it. I had thought that someone had cloned my card and guessed my PIN. I sent off a quick text to my mom and called my bank. I spent a while doing that. I was so anxious, I was practically sobbing, and I'm not a person that really cries. That money was my deposit and rent for June. I then went into the living room and heard my mom arguing. I couldn't hear much, but I heard my mom exclaim, "What made you think it was a good idea?" Instantly dread filled me. I walked up to my parents' room. My mom was arguing with my dad on the phone. According to my dad, he found our cat playing with my card. He decided to take it and remove my money to teach me a lesson about leaving my card lying around and then go to work. My dad apologized to me and I just handed the phone back to my mom and stormed out of the room. My dad had pulled something like this to me before, except he took all of my money and then lost it. My dad claimed that he took the money to teach me a lesson for leaving my card around my family. Later on he told me in private that he took it because he knew I was lying about the amount of money I had. I had been saving that money for a medical thing, so I was hiding it because my family is always in a state of financial distress and he would ask for it if he knew that I had it and I was just done being in constant pain. Anyways, there were clear flaws in the story he told us. First, I had my card and it was in my wallet exactly where I left it. That was a whole separate trip from going to work. Also, neither my wallet or my card have any sign of damage. My dad works out of the city, which is a 1.5 car ride from where we live. My mom said that she will drive me to my dad's work where we will pick up the money. We don't trust him to have it till he is done working due to what happened last time. He protested, saying that will use too much gas and that he will drive down instead, as that will use the same amount of gas. This ultimately leads to my mom practically having the confirmation that he has started gambling again. My dad had a gambling addiction when I was younger, but he got help for it and had been clean for a while. As in her mind, why else would he be so adamant that we not go to his work? He came home and returned all the money to me. Yes, I counted over and over again to make sure. He apologized and I said nothing. My mom said that he didn't sound sincere. My dad blew up on her, saying that he had apologized over the phone and that he was obviously sorry about what happened. He later on apologized to me about that, but I ignored it and he doesn't seem to be talking to my mom. My mom has told me that she is going to talk to a lawyer and she is absolutely torn up about this. There have been so many issues with their relationship this past year, but this seemed to be the straw that broke the camel's back to leave her 40-year marriage to my dad. My sisters don't know what is going on, or if they do not know the whole situation. I told her that once I move out that I might go no contact with him. My mom got all sad and said she doesn't blame me for wanting to after all that my dad put me through. I'm honestly emotionally drained and dreading calling back my bank. My mom had this great weekend planned for us, but now there is an overwhelming feeling of dread and tension over everything. I was actually going to finally do something for myself that I had finally worked up the nerve to ask my mom about, but that had to be cancelled. Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that I'm moving out soon, I would have called my friend and moved out today. I'm just done with my dad in this situation. At the same time, I feel such an overwhelming guilt. I know that I did the right thing. That I had to tell my mom and protect myself financially, but I don't know. I feel responsible for my parents separating, and me and my mom are the only ones that know that, even though my dad made his choice. The fact that I love my dad and I still want a close relationship with him like I never had yet. I can't imagine ever talking to him after he put me through all this. I also feel like I'm too emotional and hasty to make these decisions, as all of this happened today. Maybe I just need confirmation that I'm doing the right thing. So Wibta, another relevant comment. Snowflake 100000000 NTA. Your dad stole from you. Change your PIN number and passwords on everything. OOPO, absolutely. I reached out to my bank thinking that someone copied my card before I found out it was my dad. I am getting a new PIN, new card, and account information. Everything is being changed. Update 2. Update. Wibta for going no contact with my dad and technically being responsible for my parents' divorce. June 11, 2023. Posted 15 days later. I know it's been 2 weeks since my last post, but a lot has happened since then. My parents are getting a divorce. I have mixed feelings about this. My mom has started to track my dad. I know, invasion of privacy, but it was the only way to know for sure. Multiple times the tracker has put him at a casino when he claims he's working. My mom has figured that he has been getting his paycheck 2 days early and not telling anyone. My mom called a lawyer last Wednesday to talk about her next move. My dad isn't fighting it, which is honestly destroying my mom. Yesterday we got an eviction notice that we have to be out by the end of the month. This has happened before, but my dad has always explained it away. Apparently my dad, hasn't paid the rent in 4 months. My dad hasn't said anything about this. He now knows we are all seeing through him and his act. My mom and younger sister are going to live with my maternal grandparents. Me and my other sister are moving out to our own apartment at the end of the week. This makes me extremely angry. Because my parents got the money for me to pay for the rent. Instead, it was going to my dad's gambling. I did a calculation for how much I gave them this year and I am horrified. It is over $10,000. All my savings for college, so many of my paychecks that I have given up to help my family, have actually gone to my dad's gambling addiction. I feel so used and like a fool. I feel so betrayed. My mom has told me that she doesn't want me to go no contact with my dad. She wants to hold family dinners once everything has settled down and she has a place, and she is going to invite my dad. My mom still loves my dad and keeps saying that he is sick. I know this. I know he isn't well. That he has lost control, but I don't know if I can keep him in my life. He used me and manipulated me. I feel less like his child and more like his walking bank account. He broke our family, and even if it is because he's sick, I don't know if I can put it past me. I know that it would destroy my mom to cut my dad out of my life. I know you guys said I'm not the in my last post, but I still feel like one. I might add more later as I have to go to work. Edit, adding some details I forgot about in a rush to go to work. One of the reasons that my mom is going to do these dinners is to give my dad a reason to get help. I honestly don't think that will work. First, my father is rarely with us or does stuff when he lives with us. I doubt he will go. Second, if the looming threat of divorce didn't kick him into gear, I don't think weekly dinners will. I have a really good relationship with my mom, so I do want to go to those dinners to spend time with her. But I don't know if I can face my dad if he decides to come. My mom wants me to have a good relationship with my dad, which is why she doesn't want me to go no contact with him. Also, some of it is likely her guilt for the situation and the fact I tend to be the person she goes to for help. Also, a lot of you have been confused by me being responsible for their divorce. Like I said, it was an update to a post that I had made previously. If you want all the information, go look at that post, but the rundown is I woke up and saw that someone stole my money. I told my mom and she figured out it was my dad. My mom realized that she needs to divorce my dad due to him lying about what happened. My mom has never told me that any of this was my fault. It was how I was feeling at the moment. I have since gotten over that guilt. Many of you have said that I should try to get the money back from my dad. I'm not sure. I made peace not getting the money back. I'm not going to take him to court. My life is already crazy without worrying about court and my dad's gambling addiction. Not to mention, I really don't have proof that I could show the court, as I just gave the money to my mom. I never made any comments digitally what the money's for, so it will absolutely fall apart and become a he said they said. And honestly, I don't want to deal with it. I just want to move past this. Update 3, am I the asshole for not wanting my dad to live with me? July 1st, 2023, posted 20 days later. So I, NB20, live in my own apartment with my sister, 20, and roommate, M19. We moved in about 2 weeks ago. Due to events in one of my previous posts, me and her are the only ones in my family not homeless. My dad has been living in his car and staying in hotels when able. My dad has recently been hospitalized for a multitude of reasons. No, I won't go into detail. He is going to be released from some of the medical advice that is going to be given to my dad he can't follow due to being homeless. My parents haven't mentioned the fact that my dad's homeless or that they are in the middle of a divorce to the hospital. My mom is scared of what that would mean for him. My mom has asked me to talk to my roommates to see how they feel about my dad living with us temporarily. I agreed to it, but I honestly don't want to have him. This might be selfish, but he would be in my room due to the fact he works at night. He won't do my sister's room because her room is hyper-feminine and is only separated by a curtain from the living room. As I'm the one with an actual room, he would be sleeping in my room. Our schedules are pretty reversed, so we would never see each other except on my days off, but I really hate this idea. In our previous house, I had to share my room with my mom because of her working from home. This meant that whenever someone felt like it, they would barge into my room. I finally have my own space that no one could barge into, and not even 2 weeks later it might be stripped from me. Not to mention, I am currently searching for another job due to the fact that I have moved to another city and no longer want to commute 3 hours each way, and I have a couple phone interviews lined up for my days off, and I can't go into the living room due to my roommates also having those days off, and I don't like talking on the phone in public. My dad has also not acknowledged that he has done anything wrong. I am also still pissed at him. He can't go with my mom and other sister due to my maternal grandparents hating his guts at the moment. He can't ask any of his family due to the fact that they are abusive, and he doesn't want to admit how bad his situation has gotten. So this just leaves me and my sister. My dad already doesn't like our roommate due to sexism and toxic masculinity. I don't think he will act in any way that will show it, but I really don't want to place him in a situation where he might have to deal with that. I have yet to tell my roommates, as they had already left when my mom asked, and I don't want to ruin their event or have this conversation over text. I'm very tempted to pay out all the reasons it would be a bad idea for them, so they agree that we can't do it, so I'm not the but I don't like the idea of manipulating them. My mom said that my dad probably won't accept the offer, but I'm not sure I can make the offer. Also, hotels are not an option due to the fact none of us have the money for them, and my dad will likely be paying off this trip for a while. I honestly feel like either way I'm screwed. So am I the asshole? Even another relevant comment: delete. This sounds way too big for Reddit to solve. OOP. Unfortunately, Reddit is my only solution cause I have no one to talk to about this situation. Update 4. Am I the asshole for not sending my dad a happy birthday text? October 6, 2023, posted 3-4 months later. So yesterday was my dad's birthday. I'm 60. I, be 20, have been pretty much no contact with him since my last post about him, only really seeing him here and there. My dad has reached out to me once but I didn't respond. Never once has he apologized for what he has done. For the past week I had been debating if I should send him the above text. No matter what I decided I wasn't going to get him anything after all the money he took from me. Then on Wednesday my phone got stolen. I spent most of Wednesday and yesterday trying to find it and come up with solutions so that I can do all the things I need to do. I thought that was the answer to texting my dad. Yesterday I got a new phone and was talking to my mom. She texts me that I need to send my dad a text. She always reminds me to send birthday and holiday texts as I'm notorious for forgetting to. I said I will later as I still hadn't decided if I was going to. She then told me that she gave my dad $20 for me. I was shocked. She said all my siblings agreed to send him $20 for a hotel room. We all know he will probably gamble it away. I had never agreed due to my stolen phone. I was pretty much out of contact but I had still talked to her through my roommates. She also could have waited and asked if I was okay with it, which I would have said no. I don't think my mom will ask for the 20, she just seemed to do it in my name. Regardless, I was pissed. So I didn't text my dad because I wanted to make sure he was aware that I haven't forgiven him and that we don't have a relationship anymore. I also did it to spite my mom for putting my name on a gift I never agreed to. I was so sure of it yesterday but now I think I might have just been petty. Now, on to the next story, story 4. My stepmom left my dad after I refused to let her walk me down the aisle, and now he has a shocking confession before my wedding. I'm Lily, a 28-year-old woman who will marry her fiancé Richard, a 30-year-old man, in 3 months. To comprehend my current circumstances, I must return to my childhood. My parents, Claire, 53F, and Tom, 55M, met at college and married young. They had me when they were both 25, and for the first 10 years of my existence, we seemed like the ideal family. I remember spending weekends at my grandparents' lake house, where Dad taught me how to fish while Mom made lunches. Every Friday, we had family game night, and my parents took turns reading me bedtime stories. It wasn't perfect, they argued like any couple, but I always felt loved and secure. Everything changed when I was 10. Dad began working late more frequently, and Mom appeared increasingly tense and sad. I overheard arguments about someone named Tanya, but I had no idea what was going on. Then, one day, I returned home from school to find Mom crying in the kitchen. She sat me down and told me that Dad had an affair with his coworker, Tanya, 48F, and they were getting divorced. The following few months were a jumble of tears, conflicts, and bewilderment. Dad moved out and I remember being furious with him for hurting Mom and splitting up our family. The divorce was messy and traumatic. There were intense debates over custody and property partition. I recall sitting outside the courtroom during one of their sessions, feeling disoriented and terrified. In the end, Mom received primary custody, with Dad receiving visits every other weekend. At first I was hesitant to spend time with Dad. I was angry and sad and I did not want to leave Mom alone. Mom, despite her own anguish, pushed me to give Dad another chance. She informed me, "Your father made a mistake, but he still loves you. It's fine to adore him too." Gradually, I began to like spending weekends with Dad. He'd take me to the movies, show me how to cook, badly, and we'd have lengthy discussions about school and my friends. Things became more problematic when Dad declared 2 years after the divorce that he was marrying Tanya. Tanya and I met for the first time at a dinner Dad had arranged. She appeared pleasant enough, bringing me a gift, a diary with my name embossed on it, and inquiring about my interests. But I couldn't get rid of the idea that she was the reason my family had come apart. Tanya worked hard to establish a bond with me after Dad and Tanya married. She was constantly buying me gifts, clothes, books, art supplies, and recommending mother-daughter activities such as spa days or cooking classes. However, her efforts felt forced to me, and I was never comfortable around her. Part of it was out of loyalty to my mother, and part of it was because Tanya appeared to be attempting to replace her. As I approached adolescence, my connection with Dad and Tanya deteriorated. They would frequently make disparaging remarks about Mom, such as, "It's a shame your mother is so bitter," or, "If only your mother could move on like we have." These statements bothered me because I understood how hard Mom worked to co-parent harmoniously. My mother, on the other hand, never spoke negatively about Dad or Tanya in front of me. She listened to my complaints but always pushed me to give them another shot. They're not perfect, she'd continue, but they try. It's acceptable to have many relationships with different people in your life. Tanya became pregnant when I was 16 years old. Dad was overjoyed, continually mentioning how happy he was to have a real family, now. Those words struck deep because they made me feel like I wasn't enough for him. Like I was a relic of his past rather than an important part of his new existence. Tanya had a miscarriage at 20 weeks. It was a tough time for them, and I recall feeling a combination of anguish for their loss and guilty relief that I would not be replaced by a new baby. Dad informed me that Tanya would require additional love and support from me, which put a lot of strain on me at a time when I was already dealing with usual teenage concerns and the lingering consequences from the divorce. Tanya's attachment to me grew stronger following the miscarriage. She began introducing me to everyone as her daughter, which made me very uncomfortable. She also started urging me to call her mom, something I flatly refused to do. This resulted in several arguments, with Dad always siding with Tanya and accusing me of being insensitive to her feelings. During this time, my relationship with my mother remained solid. She was my rock, always willing to listen without judgment and provide support without pressuring. She encouraged me to pursue my interests, which led to me joining the school newspaper and later studying journalism in college. I met Richard in college. We were both writing for the campus paper and bonded over our shared interest in investigative reporting. Richard's family was much easier than mine. His parents were still happily married and he had 2 younger siblings. I was initially cautious to let him inside my delicate family relationships, but his tolerance and understanding allowed me to open up. All of these previous concerns have finally come to a head as we prepare our wedding. I have chosen to ask my mother to walk me down the aisle. She's been my steadfast supporter, role model and greatest friend. When I told Dad and Tanya about my decision, Tanya fell into tears and Dad became enraged. They told me I was being selfish and that Tanya should also lead me down the aisle because she had been in my life for so long. I refused, stating that my mother is my soul mother and the person I want at my side on my wedding day. This sparked a heated dispute, with Dad threatening not to attend the wedding if Tanya wasn't given a particular position. He mentioned all the times Tanya tried to be there for me, the presents she bought, the activities she planned, but to me, such things pale in contrast to my mother's unwavering love and support. Tanya blamed me of never giving her a chance and claimed that after all these years, she considered me her own daughter. She brought up her miscarriage again, expressing how difficult it had been to lose a baby and then have her stepdaughter reject her. I understand that the miscarriage was difficult for her, but I don't think it's appropriate to use it as emotional leverage against me. I'm sticking to my decision, but now I'm wondering if I'm being too severe. Richard fully supports me, saying that it is our wedding and we should do whatever feels right to us. However, some of my extended family members believe I should make a compromise to keep the peace. Part of me feels bad for hurting Tanya's feelings, but a larger part of me is upset that Dad and Tanya are attempting to make my wedding about them. I've spent years attempting to negotiate this blended family arrangement, often at the price of my own emotions. I want my wedding day to be a celebration of love, not a battleground for old family feuds. Am I an asshole for refusing to have my stepmother lead me down the aisle? Should I stick to my decision or seek a compromise? Update 1. It's been a month since my previous post, and a lot has changed. First and foremost, I'd want to thank everyone for their encouraging words. They greatly increased my confidence in my decision. After the wedding quarrel, my father and Tanya stopped communicating to me for a few weeks. It was a stressful situation, and I found myself continually checking my phone, half expecting and half fearing a message from them. Richard was quite helpful at this time, telling me that it was acceptable to prioritize my own sentiments and that I was not responsible for controlling their emotions. Tanya called me unexpectedly, weeping. She apologized for pressing me throughout the years and stated that she simply wanted to be close to me. Her voice sounded truly sorry, and for a little time, I felt a ray of optimism that we might be able to go forward. She asked if we could meet for coffee to talk things over, and after some hesitation, I accepted, thinking it would be a good opportunity to clear the air before the wedding. We met in a neighborhood cafe that I used to frequent in college. It was weird to be seated across from Tanya in a setting that brought back memories of study sessions with friends and early dates with Richard. At first, everything appeared to be going well. Tanya was surprisingly sympathetic, even saying she accepted my choice to have my mother follow me down the aisle. She told my father some anecdotes about her own wedding, including how scared she was and how she wished she had a closer relationship with her stepmother. I found myself softening slightly, viewing her as a person with her own troubles and fears rather than the woman who had ended my parents' marriage. However, things took a turn when she mentioned that she and my father were thinking about renewing their vows next year. At first, I assumed she was just discussing their plans, but then she dropped a bombshell. She offered that I walk her down the aisle at their vow renewal ceremony to balance things out. This suggestion stunned me. It felt like she was attempting to establish a quid pro quo, as if my wedding and their vow renewal were somehow interchangeable. I explained that a daughter's wedding is not the same as a vow renewal. Tanya became agitated and accused me of not giving her a chance. She mentioned the miscarriage again, explaining how difficult it had been and how she had hoped that having a kid would bring our family closer together. She stated that losing the baby was especially devastating since she believed she had missed her chance to actually be a mother. I attempted to be empathetic, recalling how awful that time had been for everyone, but I also stated that her death, while tragic, did not require me to regard her as my mother. I said that I had my own complicated thoughts at the time, feeling both sad for their loss and pleased that I would not be replaced. The conversation rapidly degenerated from there. Tanya accused me of being cold-hearted and ungrateful for everything she had attempted to do for me over time. She mentioned every gift she had ever given me and every outing she had planned, as if keeping track of her attempts at motherhood. I emphasized that genuine connection and respect for limits are what sustain relationships, not gifts and forced outings. In the heat of the moment, I uttered something I had been keeping quiet for years. I informed Tanya that, while I was sad for her loss, I was tired of her using the miscarriage as emotional leverage. I said it wasn't fair to put the responsibility of her unfulfilled maternal urges on me, especially when I was only a teenager trying to deal with my own familial tragedy. Tanya burst into tears and walked out of the cafe, leaving me sitting there, feeling guilty, angry, and relieved that I had finally spoken my actual sentiments. As I sat there trying to digest what had just transpired, I couldn't help but think about how this cafe, which had once held wonderful memories, would now be forever connected with this awful confrontation. My father called me later that evening, enraged. He claimed I had been harsh to Tanya and owed her an apology. He accused me of being selfish and ungrateful, claiming that Tanya had always wanted to love me. When I tried to explain my side of the story, he interrupted me, stating that if I couldn't accept Tanya as my mother, perhaps I shouldn't consider him my father anymore. Those remarks struck me hard. Despite our disagreements throughout the years, I never questioned that my father loved me. But in that moment it felt like he was choosing Tanya above me, just like he had done years before when he abandoned our family for her. I am hurt and outraged, but I am also more certain than ever in my decision. Richard has been wonderfully supportive throughout this process, hugging me when I cry and assuring me that I have every right to set boundaries. We're going forward with our wedding plans, aiming to create a day that celebrates our love and the family we're starting together. My mother has also been fantastic. When I told her what had happened, she listened without judgment and offered consolation without attempting to influence my decision. She reminded me that family connections are complex and that it is acceptable to prioritize my own emotional well-being. After a few days of thought, I've decided to send my father and Tanya a farewell message. In it, I intend to express my emotions and boundaries clearly. I want to make it clear that, while I am open to having a connection with them, it must be on terms that respect my sentiments and my relationship with my mother. I'll tell them that if they can't accept it, they won't be invited to the wedding. As I sit here writing this message, I can't help but feel a mixture of loss and relief. It isn't the relationship I hope I could have with my father and stepmother, but it's the healthiest I can provide right now. Am I doing the right thing, or am I being overly harsh and potentially excluding them from this key day in my life? Update 2. Another month has passed, and things have only gotten more confusing. After I wrote a message to my father and Tanya describing my feelings and boundaries, I didn't hear from them for a few weeks. The silence provided both relief and anxiety. I tried to concentrate on wedding planning, finalizing the menu, having clothing fittings with my mother and working on our vows with Richard, but the unresolved problem with my father and Tanya remained in the back of my mind. Then, last Saturday, my father arrived to my flat unannounced. I was in the process of addressing invitations with Richard when the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see my father standing there, fatigued and upset. I invited him in, more by surprise than anything else. Richard, sensing the tension, excused himself to give us some peace, but not before gently caressing my hand. When we were alone, Dad broke down. He informed me that Tanya had left him. Tanya apparently had a breakdown following our disagreement at the coffee shop and my message. She informed my father she couldn't take the rejection longer and needed to find herself. She packed her luggage and left to reside with her sister in another state. As I listened to my father pour out his heart, I was overcome with emotion. Part of me felt justified. Hadn't I been warning Tanya for years that her relationship to me was unhealthy? But another part of me felt guilty. Had my inability to accept her as a mother figure truly caused so much pain? Dad was a mess, alternately apologizing to me and blaming me for Tanya's departure. He explained that he didn't know how to solve things and asked if I would try family therapy with him and Tanya. The concept made me uncomfortable. I told him I wasn't prepared for that, especially since Tanya had left him and I wasn't sure where we all stood. Then my father revealed another bombshell. He admitted that years ago, when Tanya miscarried, they had been trying for a baby because Tanya believed it would help me accept her as a mother figure. He admitted that they were wrong to try to replace me or push a mother-daughter bond. This information surprised me. It explained a lot about their behavior over the years, including the increased pressure to bond with Tanya, the continuous comparisons to a real family, and the guilt-tripping following the miscarriage. However, it also made me angry. I felt manipulated, like my feelings had been ignored in their effort to build their ideal family. I told my father I needed time to comprehend everything and begged him to go. I was overwhelmed as I closed the door behind him. I contacted my mom because I needed her calm presence and smart guidance. She listened attentively as I explained everything, then suggested that I take some time to seriously consider what I want my relationship with my father and Tanya to look like in the future. Now I'm feeling conflicted. On the one hand, I feel vindicated in my decision to maintain boundaries with Tanya. Her leaving my father appears to demonstrate that her attachment to me was motivated more by her selfish desires than real concern for me. On the other side, I feel horrible for my father, who appears truly sorry and bewildered. Richard believes I should keep my boundaries, but be open to repairing a connection with my father over time. He pointed out that, while my father's confession regarding the pregnancy attempt was hard to hear, it was also a step forward in honesty that we had not experienced previously. My mother, when I told her what had transpired, was surprisingly sympathetic to my father. She believes that when individuals are thirsty for affection and acceptance, they can make serious blunders. She reminded me of how young my father was when they had me, and how he may have been attempting to recreate the family life he believed he had lost. The wedding is now only a month away, and I'm not sure what to do about my father's invitation. Should I still invite him, giving him the opportunity to be a part of this special day? Should I contact Tanya now that I understand her motivations? Should I focus on my own happiness while they deal with their problems? As I sit here, staring at the stack of unsent invites, I understand that this decision is about more than the wedding. It's about the future relationship I desire with my father and whether Tanya has a role in my life. It's about striking a balance between compassion and self-protection, as well as determining what forgiveness looks like in a circumstance where the wounds are deep. Update 3. The wedding was last weekend, and I wanted to provide a last update on how everything worked out. After considerable thought and several long conversations with Richard and my mother, I decided to keep my father's invitation to the wedding open, but I made it plain that it was only for him and not Tanya. I sent him a long email explaining my decision. I informed him that I was willing to work on our relationship, but it would take time, and that he needed to respect my boundaries. I also conveyed my wish that he would attend the wedding to celebrate this special day in my life, but I understood if he felt unable to attend without Tanya. To my amazement, my father accepted these terms. He responded to my email again, apologizing for everything and expressing his want to be present on my wedding day. He also stated that he and Tanya were still separated, and that he was beginning to see how much their relationship had influenced me over the years. Last-minute preparations dominated the week leading up to the wedding. My mother was an unwavering source of support, assisting with everything from floral arrangements to easing my pre-wedding nerves. Richard's family visited from out of town, and witnessing how well they got along with my mother made me happy for the loving, drama-free family I would marry into. On the wedding day, I was a ball of nervousness and excitement as my mother helped me into my dress. We both shed tears as she told me how proud she was of the lady I'd become and how glad she was that Richard and I had met. It was a memory I'll keep forever. The ceremony was amazing. Walking down the aisle with my mother by my side felt just beautiful. I noticed my father seated in one of the front rows, appearing distraught yet smiling when our gazes met. Richard's reaction when he saw me go down the aisle was all I had hoped for and more. During the reception, I was busy welcoming visitors and enjoying the festivities with Richard, but I noticed my father looking sad and lonely at moments. He put on a brave face whenever he noticed me gazing. To my amazement, he had a cordial chat with my mother at one point. They were never going to be friends, but the fact that they could be in the same room without causing tension was a relief. After the wedding, after things had settled down a little, my father and I had a long conversation. He apologized once more for everything and promised to try harder to be a good father. He recognized that he had made numerous mistakes, particularly in attempting to force a connection between Tanya and myself. He also informed me that Tanya had decided to stay with her sister indefinitely, and they were discussing a trial separation. I'm cautiously enthusiastic about mending my relationship with my father. We've decided to start with monthly dinners for just the two of us to reconnect without pressure. It won't be easy, and there'll be a lot of pain to deal with, but I'm willing to try. I chose not to contact Tanya right now. I believe we both require time and space to recover and move forward. Maybe eventually we'll be able to talk about everything that happened, but for now, I'm focused on my new life with Richard and mending my relationship with my father. This entire experience has been a roller coaster, but I'm glad I held my ground. I'm starting my married life with a better awareness of my family dynamics and more firm limits. The wedding proved to be more than simply a celebration of my love for Richard. It also marked a fresh beginning in my relationship with my parents. Richard and I are finally settling into married life, and it feels great to face the future together, knowing we can deal with anything that comes our way. We are planning a belated honeymoon to Japan next month, which we are both looking forward to. Thank you to everyone who helped me on this journey. Your guidance and encouragement helped me get through this terrible situation and begin this new chapter in my life on a positive note. It won't be easy, and there'll be a lot of pain to deal with, but I'm willing to try. Now to the next story 5. My fiancé demanded I put his family first, even at the cost of my sister's health. Now I'm reconsidering everything. Original post, October 25, 2023. Throwaway, as my work friends are on my main and they don't know this is going on. Also, it is obligatory that this is on mobile, so spelling and grammar will be poor. This is a long one, but I'll try and keep it as short as possible. I, 28F, got engaged to my partner of 7 years, Rob, 29M, in May. Both sides of our family were really happy about this, and we had a big family meal 2 weeks after getting engaged. His brother lives 250 miles away and couldn't get here for that meal, so we decided to have a meal just for his family in late June when his brother would be back for the weekend. This weekend was arranged long before we got engaged, so he wasn't back just for the meal. Earlier this year, my sister Kim, 32F, got a serious eye infection that very quickly turned into an ulcer, which scarred her cornea and left it at a high risk of a perforation. She needed a corneal graft, but her surgeon was away for 4 weeks, so she was going to have to wait until he got back to have it. However, her eye didn't hold, and it perforated the day I was supposed to be going to the family meal with R's brother. Kim's wife was at work and had her phone turned off, and our mom was away with our stepdad. So when Kim called me to let me know what was happening, I knew she would be at the hospital on her own. I immediately talked to my boss and he let me go early so Kim wasn't on her own. I texted Rob to let him know what was going on, and he texted me back to send Kim his love and to remind me about the meal that night. I ignored the comment about the meal as it was the last thing on my mind. Once I got to the hospital, I was taken back into a room where Kim was, to be greeted by 3 doctors and 2 nurses rushing around trying to help Kim. I was then informed that she needed to have an emergency operation to have her eye glued or else she would lose it. The problem was that they didn't have a surgeon at that hospital that could do it, and she needed to go to another hospital an hour and a half away. They asked if she would need transportation or if I could take her. I said I would take her. Once we got to the other hospital, we were told that she would be having the operation at 5:30 p.m. I knew then that I wouldn't make dinner and text Rob to let him know. He flipped out and basically told me to leave Kim at the hospital and have her wife pick her up after the op was done. At this point, I still hadn't been able to get a hold of Kim's wife. I told him that wasn't going to happen and that he was out of order to even ask me to do that. I then texted his mom and told her what was going on. She was really supportive and told me to stay with Kim and let her know how the op goes. A dinner can be rescheduled, Kim's health can't. I also spoke with his brother, who was equally understanding. I stayed with Kim, her operation was a success, and I got her back home about 9 p.m. Her wife had ordered some Chinese and offered me some, which I happily accepted as I hadn't eaten since lunch. With that, I didn't get home till about 11 p.m. and Rob was already asleep. Rob was very short with me for days after, and we ended up having a huge fight where he told me that I should have put his brother and family before Kim. He said he was embarrassed to go to the meal without me. I responded that I was embarrassed he thought I would put a meal before my sister's health. This led to another week of awkwardness between us before we finally sat down and we sorted it out. Or so I thought. 8 weeks ago, Kim got her graft, and so far everything is going really well with it. On Saturday, his brother was here, so we went out for dinner with his family. His family were all asking about how Kim was doing, and I showed them a picture of the stitches in her eye. I thought that everything had gone really well until we got home, and he got really angry, saying that I shouldn't have brought up Kim's health issues and I shouldn't have shown them the picture. I argued that they'd asked about her and asked to see the picture. It ended with him telling me that I needed to put him and his family before Kim or else we weren't going to work. His family will come before mine once we are married, so I should get used to it. I went upstairs and packed a bag. I'm now at my mum's house and he's been bombarding me with texts and calls since I left. I do love him, but I will never put his family above my own family's health. I feel like he's expecting me to spend every holiday with his family and put their wants above my family needs, which won't happen. I'm very close to my sister and my mom, that's not going to change. So I don't really know how to move forward or if I even want to. Has anyone experienced anything like this before? If so, how did you deal with it? TLDR. My fiancé got mad that I missed dinner with his family because my sister needed emergency surgery and I was the only one available to take her. He is now insisting that I put his family before my own. I don't know how to move forward with him. Edit. For some reason it won't let me do a full update post even on my own page, so I'm just going to add it to here. Thank you so much for everyone that commented. I replied to as many as I could, but I read all of them. Warning, this is going to be longer than the original post. A lot has happened. TLDR. For those that just want a quick update, I left him and he's out of my house. His mom is seriously pissed at him and his brother has gone no contact with him for the foreseeable future. For those that want a longer version. Once I decided to end things with him, I knew that the main issue would be getting him out of my house. I own the house outright. My grandma died 5 years ago and left her house to my mom, who sold it and split the money between me and my sister. I then bought my house with that money about a year after she died. I got in touch with my stepdad's friend, who was a landlord the day after I wrote my original post, who then put me in touch with his solicitor. He didn't have time to see me in person that day, but we did have a phone call where he gave me my options. In the UK we have something called a Section 8 notice. This is a 14-day eviction notice and the solicitor said this would be the quickest way to get him out, however he could try and contest it if he wanted to, which would lead to court dates and could take months. I asked him to draw up the notice and date it for Friday, the next day. I'd already made the decision to end things with him after work on Friday, so that he could have the weekend to sort through his emotions before work on Monday. On Friday morning I texted Rob and asked him to meet with me at our local pub after work. He quickly agreed. Not only is the pub a public space, but my stepdad and a few of his work friends go in there every Friday after work for a few pints, so I knew he would be there to step in if I needed him. Thank you for suggesting this, Redditors. I also picked up the eviction notice on my lunch break, so I was ready to give it to him. Cost £250 but was worth it. When I got to the pub, Rob was already there and my stepdad was standing at the bar with his workmates. I sat down with Rob and got straight to the point. I told him that it was over. I couldn't be with someone who didn't give me any support when I was going through one of the scariest moments of my life and expected me to drop my family for him. It didn't matter what excuses he could come up with. I wasn't interested. I'd made up my mind and we were done. He stared at me in shock for what felt like an hour but was probably only a minute or so. He then started saying I couldn't be serious. We'd been together for 7 years and I was throwing it all away. I could never find another guy like him. I responded to the last comment with, I don't want a guy like you. That's why I'm ending it. I need someone who will support me when times get tough, not get annoyed that the world isn't bowing down to what he wants. I then handed him an envelope with the eviction notice in and my engagement ring. I told him I was giving him a few weeks to find a place and be out of my house. Then I stood up and walked over to my stepdad, who had bought me a much-needed drink, and stayed with him until my ex left, still looking in shock. I knew he wouldn't approach me whilst I was with my stepdad, as he has always been a little scared of him. This is obviously a very condensed version of what happened. Once I got back to my mum's house, I had one single text from him saying he wasn't moving out and was going to contest the eviction until I'd come to my senses and got back with him. We are not over, was how he ended the text. I just turned my phone off and decided to deal with the legal side of things on Monday. There was nothing else I could do. Saturday morning I woke up and turned my phone back on and had another text from him saying that he would move out if I paid him £10,000, as that's what he'd paid towards bills whilst he had lived at the house. He paid for half the electric, gas, Wi-Fi and Sky package. Note, the Sky package is only as expensive as it is because he has to have every sports channel known to man, so his half literally just paid for the sports channels. I'd already asked the solicitor about this though, and he'd assured me that I didn't owe him any money as he hadn't contributed to a mortgage or any renovations of the house. It was just general expenses. He also knew that I don't have £10,000 just lying around. Let's say I was irritated by this and decided to ring his mum to see if she could talk some sense into him. I'll call his mum Sandra to make it easier. She was appalled by what I told her and said she would speak to him. She called me back about an hour later and asked me to meet her at the house. Rob was on an away day to watch his football team play and wouldn't be back till about 10 p.m., so I knew he wasn't there. I met her at the house with Kim, and Sandra said that Rob's brother was on his way back home and they would have Rob out by the following afternoon. She hadn't even spoken to Rob, just his brother, but she promised he would be out. Sandra then asked me to walk her through the house, showing her exactly what was his and what wasn't, so he didn't take anything that didn't belong to him. The next morning I got a text from Rob calling me all the names under the sun for getting his mom and brother involved. I blocked him, and a couple of hours later, Sandra texted me to let me know he was out and staying with her. I thanked her and she told me that she would like to stay in contact, and I happily agreed to this. I went back to my house after work on Monday, changed the alarm code, and my stepdad changed all the locks for me. My stepdad is also arranging for a friend of his to install cameras around the outside of the house. This will be done over the weekend. Sandra rang me on Tuesday asking if we could meet up, as she had some things she wanted me to know. So we met for lunch that day. It was at this time that she told me her ex was a controlling a-hole who was incredibly selfish, and the selfishness was what she had seen in Rob for so long. That's why she had commented on him being like his father, but she had hoped that was the extent of Rob's attitude and he hadn't picked up his dad's controlling behavior, which, to be fair, he hadn't up until this whole episode. She had left Rob's dad after he had punched Rob's brother in the face when he was 14 and Rob was 10. He had never laid a hand on her or their sons before, but one time was enough and she left with the boys. To her knowledge, her ex had never reached out to speak to Rob or his brother, and they hadn't spoken to their father in years. I didn't know any of this. All I had been told was that their dad wasn't in the picture and hadn't been for a long time, but Sandra had thought I knew, and that's why she hadn't told me before. However, she had found out on Sunday night that Rob was back in contact with his father and had been for the past year. His dad had been putting lots of thoughts into Rob's head about how he is the man of the house and his family is all that matters. This had fed into Rob's selfish tendencies and had amplified them tenfold. Sandra said that she had told him to find somewhere else to stay ASAP, as she couldn't even look him in the face. Then Rob and his brother had a huge argument that ended with his brother telling him that as long as Rob is in touch with their dad, then he will have zero contact with him. Even going so far as to tell him to spend Christmas with their dad because Sandra is going to his house and Rob isn't welcome. When Sandra took Rob's brother's side in all this, Rob flew into a rage and said he would move in with his dad. He then left the house, but came back a couple of hours later looking like he'd been crying. Turns out that his dad doesn't want him living with him and basically said he could be on the streets for all he cares. He's not putting a roof over a grown man's head. Sandra thinks that Rob is now starting to realize everything he has lost due to him listening to his dad and has seen his dad's true colors. Sandra is incredibly disappointed in him, but he's her son, so she is trying to be there for him as best as she can. However, she still wants him out as she doesn't trust him anymore. His brother still won't have anything to do with him. She has also told him to stay the hell away from me, as I don't need to be brought into this, and he has promised her that he will. Only time will tell if that's true, but I do have him blocked on everything, and if he turns up at the house I will just call the police to get rid of him. The more Sandra told me about what had been going on behind my back, the more resolute I became about wanting nothing to do with him. I never want to see him again, if I can help it. So all in all, Rob's life is a shit show, but as long as he stays away from me then I don't care. I've been spending a lot of time with my sister and her wife as well, and my mom and stepdad, which has been great. I've never really been close to my stepdad, but this has brought us a lot closer together, which has been one huge positive out of all this. I'm not exactly happy right now, but I'll get there. There's still a lot of feelings that I need to unpack, and it will take time to move on from this whole situation. I don't think I will be dating for a while. I need to really get over all this and don't want to dump this on anyone else right now. For all those asking how Kim is doing, she's doing great. Had a hospital appointment on Monday and her consultant said her eye is healing, in his words, marvelously. So that's a relief. Thank you to everyone that reached out to me. I hope there won't be any need to update this again, so this should be my final update. For telling my ex that it's not my fault that he's homeless. November 26, 2023. So I 28 have posted on relationship advice before about my now ex 29M. The post and update is in my profile, but basically my ex-fiancé wanted me to put his family before mine, even at the cost of my sister's health. I ended up breaking up with him over it, and he was forced to move in with his mom, who then found out that he had been in touch with his abusive dad, who was twisting his view on how a relationship should work. Last I heard was that his mom was kicking him out as she would not have anyone in her house that was in contact with her ex, and that he had tried to go live with his dad, but his dad had refused. I was completely NC with him, so his mom was the one that had told me this. I'll call my ex Rob and ex-mom Sandra to make things easier. I hadn't heard from Rob in weeks, but yesterday he showed up at my house. I had the chain on my door, so opened it with that still attached. No way would I let him in. He basically told me that he had nowhere to live. His mom isn't speaking to him and his dad won't put a roof over a grown man's head, his words not mine. He asked if I would take him back or at least let him live with me. No way in hell would I get back with him, and getting him out the first time only went easy because his mum stepped in to help. He had threatened to take me to court knowing that if he did it could take months to get him out, and then said he would only move if I gave him £10,000. I contacted his mum, who was furious about that, and she turned up with his brother and forced him out. I told him that there was zero possibility of him ever living with me again and that we were 100% over. He started shouting at me and calling me all sorts of names, so I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave and shut the door. I have cameras all over my house, so I caught everything he did and said on camera and saved it to a USB just in case. He then went crying to all our mutual friends and managed to get back to his mom. She called me and asked what happened. I told her, and she then informed me that she had put her house up for sale and was moving 300 miles away to be nearer her other son. She and Rob had a huge argument about this and she finally kicked him out. Since then he's been couch surfing, but with Christmas coming up, his friends aren't really happy with having him on their couches when they have kids and are meant to be enjoying the festive season. He's been kicked out of 3 friends' houses in 10 days. She told me I was right to refuse him, but I've since had other friends say that they feel sorry for them, and that I can just let him stay in my spare room until he's back on his feet. I then asked them to put him up, but they said they would but don't have room, and if they had a spare room like me then they would let him stay. My family and his are on my side, but I'm starting to doubt myself with what a couple of my friends have said. So Reddit, Aida? Edit. Just a quick edit as I'm going to bed. I've just spoken with the wife of one of Rob's friends and she's asked to meet me on my lunch break tomorrow. Apparently, Rob stayed with them for 2 nights before she kicked him out, and there's more going on than what I know of. She's going to tell me the full story tomorrow, but told me that I shouldn't let him anywhere near me and that he's staying in Airbnb so he does at least have a roof over his head right now. I'll try to update after I've spoken to her. Update, November 27, 2023. So I posted yesterday about my ex turning up at my house wanting me to let him move back in with me. I said no, but a couple of friends thought I should let him, and that messed with my head. Rob is my ex. A few people told me to change my lock, etc. I did that and changed my alarm code, as well as my stepdad got his friend to put up 4 cameras around my house. I'm also going to start shutting the gate so that no one can walk up to the house without ringing the bell there first. I put in an edit that I was going to meet with one of Rob's friends' wives for lunch today, and I have to say that it was informative for sure. I'll call her Nat, 30F, and her husband Zach, 29M. So I went to meet her on my lunch break at a cafe near my work. It's a place that a lot of my co-workers go to, and I know the staff there as well. A few Redditors thought that she might bring Rob with her, so I wanted it to be somewhere I feel comfortable and have backup if needed. Turns out that I didn't need to bother about that. When I got to the cafe, Nat was there on her own. I grabbed some lunch and a drink and sat with her. We went through the usual small talk before she started telling me what had been going on. Rob rang Zach on Thursday morning saying he had nowhere to go and could he stay with them for a few days. Zach spoke to Nat and they agreed he could stay in their guest room. Rob went to their house after work and they had a long talk where Rob told them he has a flat lined up, but can't move in till January. Zach and Nat agreed to let him live with them until January as long as he followed some basic rules and paid for his own food. The rules were things like, no bringing women back there, and if he went out drinking he had to be quiet when he got back so he didn't wake their daughter who's 6. He agreed to all this and paid for a Chinese for them all that night. The next day after work Rob went to meet his dad in the pub for a few pints. When Zach and Nat went to bed Rob still wasn't home. They were woken up at about 2 in the morning by Rob arguing with a woman. Apparently, Rob had met this woman in a bar, took her back to Zach and Nat's house, got his pleasure and then told her to get dressed and fuck off once he was done. She had gotten angry, which started an argument where Rob was saying some horrific shit to her. Nat took the woman downstairs and got her a taxi, while Zach stayed upstairs arguing with Rob. Once Nat had got rid of the woman she went back upstairs and tried to calm Zach and Rob down. At this point Rob decided to take out his frustrations on Nat, calling her a bitch and telling her to do something useful and make him a sandwich before bursting out laughing like he'd made the funniest joke ever. This made Zach lose it and pinned Rob to the wall by his throat. Side note, Rob isn't a fighter at all, whereas Zach was an amateur boxer in his youth and can handle himself well. Nat managed to get Zach to let him go and Rob was shoved in the guest room and told to sleep off the alcohol. It's a miracle that Nat's daughter didn't wake up during this. The next morning Nat got their daughter ready and went to her mom's after telling Zach to get Rob out of their house. Zach agreed, and after Nat left he woke Rob up and told him to pack his shit and leave. Rob tried to apologize and begged to stay, but Zach was having none of it and kicked him out. Going off the timing, I think he left there and came straight to my house. On Sunday Zach texted Rob to meet up so that they could speak and they met up in a pub. Zach has been friends with Rob since they were 11 and has never seen him act like he has been doing, so he wanted to find out what was really going on. He managed to finally get the truth out of Rob. Basically, Rob has been in contact with his dad for a lot longer than he told us. By this point it's over 2 years. His dad is a raging misogynist that believes a woman's place is in the kitchen and bedroom. A man's place is to rule the house and be waited on hand and foot, as well as deciding who can and can't be in their lives. He's been dripping this poison into R's ear and it's really taken a hold of him. Zach told Nat that he just doesn't recognize Rob anymore. Rob wants to start living his life the way his father has told him he should. When Zach pointed out that Rob's dad is 62, living in a shitty one-bedroom flat, not had a real relationship since R's mom left him, has no friends, his family doesn't speak to him, and that he's the type of guy that when he walks into a pub people finish their pants so they can leave and get away from him, Rob was furious. He told Zach that his dad is just misunderstood. Zach responded that people understood his dad and that's why they stayed away from him. He's toxic. This pretty much ended their conversation and Rob left. Zach did find out that Rob does have a flat lined up for January, so that was true, and that he's found Airbnb he can stay until the flat is ready at a minimal cost. Zach and Nat have also decided to go NC with Rob as they don't need that toxicity around them, but especially not around their daughter. A few Redditors had said it sounded like Rob was on drugs, so I asked Nat what she thought and she doesn't think so but can't be sure. She and Zach think that Rob is just so far under his dad's thumb now that he's completely changed as a person. He believes that everything his dad says is gospel. She did let me know that Rob has a burner IG account that he is using to check on my IG, and I immediately made my account private. He had said something about seeing me waste money on a stupid amount of Christmas presents when I couldn't even help him out with Zach on Sunday. I'd been to a Christmas market on Saturday afternoon and had posted pics on IG. All of this just made my resolve stronger that he will not be getting anywhere near my house again. It also made me realize that I don't have any feelings for him anymore other than frustration at how he's acting and some sadness at how far he's fallen from the man I once knew. I thought that hearing he had another woman in his bed would annoy me, but there was just nothing. I couldn't have cared less. I thanked Nat for the info and we agreed to keep in touch. We won't be as close as we were when I was with Rob, but it feels good to have someone who knows the entire situation and has seen Rob's behavior with his own eyes. There were also some Redditors that told me to ditch the friends that had told me to let him stay with me. Unfortunately, I can't ditch them completely as they're part of the friend group and that would just cause unnecessary drama, but I will be keeping my distance from them and only talking to them when part of the group. I'm currently with my sisters and we are going to watch a Christmas film to get us in the mood to decorate all our houses this weekend, so I will be on and off for the next few hours if anyone has any questions. Thanks for the votes and giving me some perspective. Reddit isn't all bad. For anyone that's still around. December 19th, 2023. Still have people reaching out to see if I'm okay. A few hated me just using initials, so R is Rob. I really hoped that I wouldn't have to update again, but I've just had a call from one of Rob's friends and it looks like he's going to be spending Christmas in prison. Apparently, he went out on Saturday night with his dad and they got into an argument which turned physical. Rob isn't a fighter, however he is bigger and stronger than his dad, and it ended with his dad falling backwards and hitting his head off a wall, knocking him unconscious. The staff in the pub called the police and an ambulance, but Rob left before they got there. Rob's dad had to go to hospital, where he still is. I'm unsure of his exact injuries, but they're not life-threatening. He must also be awake as he is pressing charges against Rob, however they won't keep him in unless absolutely essential at this time of year. Rob was arrested on Sunday morning at the B&B he's been staying at and had to appear in magistrate's court on Monday. Due to him not having a fixed address right now and the fact that his dad is still in hospital, he has been remanded on a Section 18 with intent. Unless he can find a permanent address to go to, then he won't be getting out until his trial at Crown Court. I know his mum is already with his brothers over 250 miles away, so I don't think she will be able to help right now. Finding this out has actually given me a sense of peace right now. I've been trying to ignore it, but the chance of him turning up and spoiling Christmas has been at the back of my mind ever since he turned up at my house. I'm hoping he stays in over Christmas so that I can just relax. OOP on Section 18 in her area. OOP, Section 18 is an assault charge. A Section 18 with intent is the next level up and is classed as intending to and causing grievous bodily harm to someone. I've been told that if found guilty, then it's usually a multiple-year prison sentence. Another mini update. December 23, 2023. I went round to N&Z, hereby known as Nat and Zach, to drop off a present for their daughter, a bottle of Bell's for Zach and a bottle of Prosecco for Nat for Christmas, and had a cup of tea with them whilst they filled me in on what's going on. Rob will be in over Christmas, but will likely get out early January. His lawyer is trying to get the charges reduced from Section 18 with intent to a Section 20. I only found out today that a Section 18 with intent is one step down from attempted murder and you're looking at double digits in prison if you get found guilty. Section 20 is a lot less severe and is usually a 2-year suspended sentence for first-time offenders, which he is. His lawyer has said that if he pleads guilty to Section 20 then CPS will lower the charges to get this one over and done with ASAP as the courts are ridiculously backed up in the UK right now and prisons are full. Zach went to the B&B he was staying at and got Rob's stuff which is now sitting in his garage as one last favor to Rob, Zach's words. He can't get in touch with me without my consent whilst he is locked away. The prison literally has to ring me and ask if it is okay that I get put on his approved call list and only then is he allowed to ring me, which won't be happening. I've also spoken to his mom, who has basically washed her hand of him for the time being. She thinks that he needs to learn his lesson and maybe spending Christmas in a cell will teach him how much he's lost the plot. She has spoken to him and said that he's now saying the right things, but only time will tell if he means them. He is talking about moving to be near his brother to get away from their dad, so maybe he has seen the light. His brother has refused to go onto his call list, so Rob can't contact him, so I don't know how that will work. As for his dad, he is still in hospital with a broken hip and has had to have surgery to fix it. The broken bone and head injury is why the charges are so high right now. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, knowing he can't ruin my Christmas. I'm just about to pack everything into the car and go and stay at my mum's until January 2nd, but thought I'd finish the year off letting everyone who's helped me and supported me through this know what's going on. Merry Christmas to everyone that celebrates it and hope everyone is doing well. Final update, April 13th, 2024. Hi all, sorry it's been a while since my last update, but I wanted everything to be finished before I update it again. Rob spent Christmas on remand in prison. He didn't get out until the second week of January and that was only because his mum agreed to let him stay with her again. He had his plea hearing the first week of February, where he pleaded guilty to a Section 20 assault. He then had to wait until last week to get his sentencing court date. I didn't know how much actually goes into sentencing. They had to get a victim impact statement, a pre-sentencing report from probation, statements from his mum and brother. His barrister even reached out to me to give a statement saying that we had broken up and I'd asked him to leave the house. He used our breakup as an extenuating circumstance, saying that because of the breakup of our relationship and him losing his home, that had seriously impacted his mental health. The statements from his mom and brother also confirmed that he had lived in an abusive home when he was young, so he claimed he had PTSD because of that. These were all read out at his sentencing. He was going to get 3 years, but the judge knocked time off for pleading guilty and for mitigating circumstances. That left him with a 16-month sentence that was suspended for 18 months. As part of the conditions for his release, he isn't allowed anywhere near his dad, he has to go to counseling for his supposed PTSD and he isn't allowed to drink alcohol. He even has an ankle monitor that tests his sweat every half an hour for alcohol and will alert probation if he gets a positive result. Luckily for him, his boss has let him go and work at their main location in the city that's half an hour away from here, and probation was happy for him to live there as well. He moved into a flat there this week, so I don't have to worry about running into him. I haven't spoken to him at all, and I don't want to either. He has tried reaching out through a couple of friends, but they've respected my decision and told him to move on with his life. However, I did speak to his mum yesterday and she said that she thinks he's depressed, but so far he's doing okay. She's the one I got all of this information from. It's a strange mix of emotion for me towards him, as I still care on some level, just not enough to keep him in my life. I know I need to keep him away from me, as I can never see him like I did at this time last year. It's crazy to think that it's only been a year since we got engaged. So much has happened. Other than those mixed emotions, I'm doing well. I've been hanging out with my sister and her wife a lot more, as well as catching up with friends. I'm still working at the same place and I don't see that changing anytime soon. For the people asking about my sister, she's doing good. She had a setback last month, but she seems to be over that now and has just been approved to have some form of newish stem cell treatment at the UK's biggest eye hospital. Which is fab news. She tried to explain it to me, but it involved them taking her blood and putting it into her eye, which grossed me out, so I told her to stop. However, because she's my sister, she then sent me pictures of what they do and Mum had to step in and tell her to stop. No matter how old we get, I don't think we will ever stop trying to annoy each other. So all in all, I think we're all moving on with life. Unless something big happens, then this should be my last post. I really want to thank everyone for their kind words and support. This has restored my faith that there are still good people out there. New update, June 30th, 2024, 2 months later. Hi all, I really hoped I wouldn't have to come back, but I've had several DMs on this account saying that a TikTok video is claiming that I'm back with my ex. I don't have TikTok so I haven't seen it, but that's 100% not true. I haven't seen or spoken to him since my last update. As far as I'm aware, he's still living in the city half an hour away and is doing okay. I'm not really interested, to be honest. Rob's mom has accepted an offer on her house and has moved in with his brother until she can finalize the purchase of her house and find a flat she likes. Everyone else is doing well. My sister is the same and her eye is still healing. She's got some new glasses and says her vision is now nearly back to normal, so that's good. My sister and 7 other family and friends went out to Germany for England's first game, which was a lot of fun. Other than that, I've just been working and finding my new normal. Please don't listen to anything said about this on TikTok, YouTube or anywhere else. I will not be getting back with Rob. That ship has sailed off the edge of a cliff. Relevant comments. Has Rob reached out to OOP? OOP. He was informed that I didn't want to speak to him and wanted to be left alone, and he respected that, thankfully. I just want us both to move on now. Now to the next story. 6. The golden child brother got my fiancée pregnant. After 5 years, he is in a coma, and my mom has asked me to step in as the father for his child. 5 years ago, only a month before I, now 30, was scheduled to get married to my fiancée, I discovered she had been seeing my brother. They came clean to me about it only because she wanted to keep the baby and was pregnant. Apparently ever after Karen and I were engaged, my ex-fiancée Karen, 30F, and brother Chris, 33M, had been sleeping together. Getting engaged was certainly the next step, since Karen and I had been dating since our junior year of high school and had stayed together through college as well. Still, she chose to cheat on me with my brother once we became engaged. The only reason that ever happened was that a few days following our engagement, my brother told her he had always harbored her and felt he had to tell her since she was getting married. He was unable to tell her anything regarding these emotions thereafter. She then became aware all of a sudden that she had also been progressively developing emotions for him. She had stayed with me since she was hesitant about him, apparently even flirting behind my back occasionally at family events and other gatherings. 5 years ago, just a few months before my wedding, I got to know all these things when the two of them sat me down along with my parents and informed me they were intending on getting together. Karen was in love with Chris and they were expecting a baby together, so she could no longer wed me. That day, I was rather agitated, nearly refusing to accept it, and told Karen I wanted her to accompany me home and break this relationship, whatever it was, with Chris. But my mother made it really clear that Chris and Karen would be together and that nothing of the kind was going to happen. Since it was finally their choice, I simply had to find peace with it. That my mother was endorsing anything like this astounds me even now. At least my dad had the decency to appear ashamed and try to comfort me, but my mother openly backed this and even told me that if I objected, I could keep it to myself since Karen was pregnant and I had no right to disturb her in such a delicate state. My mother hardly cared about what I was going through, as she was simply insane over at last having a grandchild in the family. She battled with me tooth and nail to defend the behavior under question. Following the incident that day, Karen moved in with my family as her own parents stopped wanting to talk to her once she told them the truth. Obviously, we had to call off the wedding. My parents paid for it so I wouldn't have to worry about that either. But I refused to talk to the family, hence I was kicked out. We have had absolutely zero touch over the last 5 years. My father is the only person who even cared to attempt and get in touch with me. Unfortunately, I was not interested in talking to him either, hence there has been radio silence from their end since I severed contact with them. Karen and I had been together for a very long period, hence it took me a very long time to recover what had occurred to me. I had really loved her, hence it took a lot of therapy to get over it. Even today, I wouldn't say I'm really over it, but I'm handling it. Still, the rest of the family kept in contact with me and I did learn from them that she had a son with my brother. There was no need to get in touch with her after that either, as a paternity test verified that it was my brother's child rather than mine just 1 month after she gave birth. They spent the past 5 years together and finally got married. My mother contacted me out of the blue about a week ago, which surprised me since she had been the one most in favor of Karen and Chris, like to an unhealthy degree. I had assumed everything was going well for them. Curious just a bit, I decided to contact her back when she emailed me stating she had to talk to me immediately. She cried and conveyed some quite awful news when I phoned her. I found out that my brother had suffered a quite catastrophic accident. It was a hit-and-run case, and sadly, the impact caused him to fall into a coma. The exact length of recovery is unknown. This had happened last week. Just 3 days after the physicians reported things were somewhat severe, my mother decided to give me a call to let me know about it. Initially, I assumed she would want me to see him and be there for the family. I would have been willing to comply since, in spite of all, I believe this is a major issue and it would have still been a fair expectation. I would not want to turn my back on someone in such a horrible state. Then my mother turned completely another way and declared she wanted me to be with Karen and my nephew. Then mother informed me she now expected me to be there for them in my brother's place. I had no idea what that meant either. She informed me that because Chris was essentially not even there anymore, I had to be there for Karen and her child in any manner whatsoever. When I asked her to explain, she expected me to jump in and live with them so I could look after them, not only financially. She claimed she would have taken them in herself, but she was not getting younger and caring for all of them would be too much effort. She was phoning me to let me know this, and she wanted me to decide on the call itself. I clearly lost my cool as she avoided me for 5 years and now wanted me to do something so significant when she was finally speaking to me. Although Karen and her son were all on their own right now and they needed someone to be there for them, I could see that someone from their close family would have been more suited for her than me. Someone she had betrayed and then not even tried to apologize to. Clearly, I told my mother right away that I was not going to do such a thing and that she was stupid for ever expecting me to say yes to that. Then she began fighting with me over the phone, and I had little time to spend. I immediately hung up and then blocked her once more as I was already somewhat annoyed and I wanted to not let her further sour my attitude. After that, I tried to go about my daily business but I couldn't stop thinking about what Chris and Karen were going through. I felt terrible for them. That was really strange. Thus I clearly was not going to follow what my mother had asked me to and substitute my brother for their family. He was still alive, he had just fallen asleep, but it was not as though he had died already. She was acting as though he had disappeared. I believed that my father would be more rational than my mother, so later that day I chose to phone him instead as I was feeling very lightheaded over this whole situation. After 5 years of no contact, it was somewhat strange to chat to him. Yet after some brief conversation, I asked Chris how he was doing. Right now, he told me, things were not looking very well. Then I expected him to have some decent understanding when I told him about the earlier that day talk I had with my mother. Rather, he also added, my mother was correct to have expectations of me. That truly surprised me since, out of both my parents, my dad was always the more cool-headed one. Now even he was saying such strange things. He said that Karen and I had a history nonetheless and that I am also part of the family regardless of our former 5-year relationship. He stated he truly meant that. In the end I am blood. If someone else could stand up for the family, it should be me and my mother's expectations are not particularly illogical. And right now I'm not sure what to do. I have been avoiding talking to anyone from my family, including my other relatives, for the past week since I am simply worried that someone would bring this up with me and subsequently I would be obliged to justify my choices. Since I'm not stepping up for my family and I know they truly need me, if not financially, then at least emotionally, I also sort of feel like the bad guy here. Simply said, I'm not sure what to do. Though I know my mother is asking of me something quite strange and illogical, I feel guilty for turning it down straight away. I just feel so strange about this whole thing. I haven't even been down to the hospital to see my brother. Since all of this is so intimate, neither have I been able to discuss this with any of my friends. Although they understand how things have been between my family and me ever since my wedding was put off, this is somewhat more unusual than that. To be honest, right now I'm sharing this on Reddit since I truly believe I need some objective advice on what to do. Whether it's friends or relatives, everyone will have some kind of biased view. I truly need guidance as, without a workable answer to all of this shortly, I fear losing my sanity. Since I discovered Karen had been cheating on me, I really feel like I'm returning to the time of my life when I was obsessing about her and Chris. I don't want to go back to that very dark period since it has taken a lot of time to get out of. Thus, whatever anyone has to say, kindly let me know so I may at least divert myself from the harshness of the opinion. So am I the expletive, for not visiting my family and supporting them following an accident involving my brother. Update 1. Hey buddies, I decided not to visit my family right now. Right now, it is quite too much for me. The things my parents were telling me alone let me realize just how severe my anxiousness had gotten over the past week. But right now I'm back on my anti-anxiety medicines and attempting to handle things. In the comments area of my initial article and even individually in my DMs, to let me know that they are there for me and that I am not alone, a lot of people have showered me with love and support which I'm extremely grateful for. Since I truly don't think I could handle all of this on my own, I have also confided in a few of my close friends about what is happening. They have also advised me to talk to them anytime I need to simply let it all out. They have also advised me that, for now, my decision to not go and meet them is the right one to make since it is the best one I could make right now for me. No matter what else people are going through in life, I have to prioritize myself. Chris and my family have always put themselves first, hence I should likewise do the same. To be honest, I hardly believe I should be there for them emotionally either. They can each handle this on their own, they have one other. After the wedding was called off and I discovered I'd been betrayed, I was the one with absolutely no one from my immediate family at my side. Though he was the one who had been in the wrong, my own parents had turned against me and had chosen my brother over me. Out of the family, he ought to have gone missing first. Still, that's only past. I'm attempting to go on from that. Should I return to them once more, I will not be able to accomplish it successfully. I have thus blocked all of them once more and will keep to my choice of not interacting with them. I truly regret what happened to my brother, but I hope he recovers quickly as, no matter what he has done, I cannot be the person wishing anything negative to happen to anyone. I thus hope things work out for them, but I am out of here. Right now, I'm just paying close attention to my own mental health. I'm thinking of returning to treatment. The way I handled this and the comments from my parents got under my skin. All those old emotions are resurfacing once more, hence I truly believe I should consult a professional since I don't think I'm handling all of this as well as I thought I was. I therefore simply now am looking out for myself. Update 2. I thus learned from a few relatives that my brother's condition is really severe and that it is not exhibiting any improvement. He still resides in the hospital. It has been almost 2 weeks. Although I feel horrible for the family as their situation is extremely terrible, there is not much I could do. Apart from myself, everyone who knows my family has dropped by the hospital to see my brother at least once in the previous 2 weeks and pay their sympathies for the horrible disaster that has happened. I would have done that, but then I also discovered via my relatives that my parents have been disparaging me to anyone who has been visiting them and projecting me as a terrible man. They seem to be telling everyone they begged me to come see them and be there for the family. But I had objected and said things like this was retribution for screwing me over 5 years back and my brother deserved this. For the record's sake, I clearly said nothing of the kind. Since I'm usually a friendly person to everyone, some of them got in touch to ask whether this was true or not since it seemed like nothing I would say. When they questioned me about it, I clearly informed them that my parents were fabricating it to make it seem like I was a horrible person, probably to get a reaction out of me or maybe simply because that's the type of people my parents are. Not that I said these things. Especially after already having screwed up my life once, I was simply quite let down that people were saying such things about me and fabricating stories only to present me as the evil guy. I'm just happy that my relatives asked me about it since, had they simply decided to trust my parents, then I doubt anyone in the family would have been speaking to me at this stage either. I had not spoken to my parents for the past 5 years, but the rest of my family, my aunts, uncles, and naturally my cousins, had been there for me. I honestly didn't want to lose that. And I suppose my parents chose to try and screw that up for me as well since they couldn't abide it. Simply said, I find it incomprehensible that people despise me so strongly. I have literally not done anything to them. Although my parents have always had a soft spot for my brother right from our youth, my brother and I have never been very close. This seems needless and overbearing. Update 3. Hi. So I posted an update 2 days ago. Today my mother decided to get in touch once more. She had nowhere else to go except pay me a visit to speak with me as I had blocked them everywhere. She was already there, waiting for me to get back home from work. Since I was simply so tired from work already, I really didn't feel like chatting to her. I almost decided I would be getting back into the car, but she noticed me and I had to go talk to her. Since it would be quite difficult to get rid of her, I chose to talk to her in the front yard instead of admitting her into my house. This proved to be quite bad for me since finally she started screaming at me, drawing the attention of the neighbors as well. The exchange began quite naturally. She just struck up a casual conversation with me and I had to respond gently. Then I couldn't help myself, so I started asking her why she had been fabricating lies about me to fit me as the evil man. I informed her that although my family had treated me like this, I had never wished anything negative to happen to them. I honestly simply wanted to go on with my life, but they were making even that incredibly difficult for me. I had been suppressing these emotions for a very long time. Hence when I saw her it simply spilled out and I couldn't control myself. Ultimately, I informed her that although they had never treated me the same way and I was rather let down by their actions, I found it quite difficult to consider them as family after all that had transpired. I stated that since I had just returned home from work and was truly not in the mood to fight or talk to anyone about anything too emotionally taxing, whatever she had come to discuss could be done later. She had been listening to me patiently up until that point, but she became rather agitated when I told her I wanted not to talk to her at the moment and said she was only here to apologize for the exact same things I had mentioned. She claimed that she and my father had not been thinking clearly. They had first been somewhat offended by my response since I had refused to stand up for my family and even paid visits to my brother while he was in the hospital. I wasn't not visiting since they then understood they hadn't exactly treated me well in the prior 5 years and that I was clearly still rather offended about that. She had come to try to settle things out between us since she thought the family should stick together right now for emotional stability. She changed her plan and decided she would yell at me instead when I informed her I wanted no conversation with her. She advised me to simply be happy that I still have a family since, following the way I had responded upon learning of my brother's injury, she had half of a mind to cut me off and ensure that the rest of my relatives likewise ceased communicating with me permanently. She clarified that she thought my reaction had not been sad enough when I found out about my brother's tragedy, as I did not know what she meant. Not even did I know what she had expected of me. She claimed that when I told her about my brother's accident, she expected me to at least show some feeling, but during the phone call I had just sounded quite apathetic. Clearly, regardless of our personal relationships, some news like that was absolutely going to impact me, and it has indeed. As I said before, I do not wish it onto anyone. This includes my family, even with our close ties. I was therefore quite offended learning about his accident. Perhaps that had not shown up on the phone call since she could not see my face, but her arguments were simply wholly unfounded and irrational. She even said that my brother's absence for Karen and my nephew had shown how little I valued the family, as I had not been there for them. She was only fabricating once more to support their behavior. Since these things are utterly strange and pointless, I truly believe that my parents have started to lose their minds. She started screaming at me, thus I lost even more interest in talking to her and chose to hide inside my house. I thus unlocked the entrance to my house after some time and entered while she was still screaming at me. She followed me inside, but I closed the door in her face and advised her to leave since I was really offended and wanted no further interaction with her. She battled with me, but I told her I would call the police. That's when she finally departed, but not before berating me out and declaring I would shortly suffer consequences. I'm not even curious about learning what that implies. I have no idea what that entails. I simply want to unwind and go on living. Update 4. Hi there. Following the accident 26 days ago, my family at last received some positive news to deliver today to all. They obviously did not personally inform me about it. I learned about it from my cousins. The good news is that my brother is at last displaying some progress. That's a positive indication since he is reacting better and out of a coma is not. Though I'm not really regarded as part of the family anymore and have been thrown out long ago, the last month has been rather trying for everyone in the family, including myself, so I truly hope he can make it and that he only improves from here forward. My parents have truly proven to me that they are unhinged in the way they have been following my life throughout the past 26 days. They were simply venting their anger on me. Following my last conversation with my mother, which I discussed in my last update, I did not hear from her for a few days. Then though, my father called me up to scream at me instead. I cannot tell it was him as he used a different number from the one he typically uses. He started screaming at me practically right away when I answered the call, so I wouldn't even have a chance to hang up when I discovered it was him. He was rather cunning about it too. He aimed to surprise me so he could yell at me. My brain would be all muddled instead of phoning me at any regular time during the day. He decided to contact me at 5 in the morning when he knew I would be sleeping and would have to get woken up to answer his call. A few days after my conversation with my mother, my dad contacted me at 5 o'clock in the morning. Following almost 3 phone calls, I at last answered the 4th one. He began screaming at me right away about what an unappreciative child I was and how he wanted I never to have been born. I was a horrible human being for not even bothering to come see my brother in the hospital when he was suffering so much, and for not being there for the family, he claimed. Thus he said he was going to make sure the rest of the family never spoke to me again. I was still processing everything, thus he was the one who hung up after raving for about 5 minutes. By the time I finished with everything, he had hung the phone and banned me. It wasn't very hilarious at the time it happened, but now I find it really humorous since my parents are simply so determined to make me appear like a bad guy and yell at me for pointless actions. For these exact reasons, they are ready to go out of their way into such extremities. As usual, I had to be there for the family. I have already mentioned that I think they were venting their frustrations on me. They just wanted a scapegoat. However, it's okay as my father failed in convincing the rest of the family against me since they know I'm not guilty and they also know what happened 5 years ago. Still, I simply hope they get off my back and concentrate on my brother since his condition is getting better. Update 5. Hi, returning here after almost 3 years seems somewhat strange. Since then, a lot has transpired, generally for the better. Right now I'm in Germany working. Having been here for the past year and a half, I have also started seeing someone. It's been lovely, truly. My girlfriend and I have been together for the past 8 months. If I'm being honest, I have had absolutely zero contact with my family for the past 3 years. That has also been delightful. To be different, I have stayed in touch with my good relatives. Right now, my brother is totally well. He survived the crash, and although it took him some time to recover, he is doing great right now. After my brother had begun to recover, Karen came over to me to apologize for all that had past transpired. But I just told her at this moment an apology was not necessary. After everyone realized I was heading to Germany for business, she came to see me with a bouquet to apologize on behalf of her and my brother. Though he was too embarrassed of the events 8 years ago, my brother could not come see me. Honestly, it made little difference now. I thus simply informed them I forgave them and showed no further care. And that was true. I was on better things, moving on with my life, so I did not really care. I have been here since then. My parents no longer interact with me, and I'm quite glad about this, as I would never let that ever happen once more under any conditions. Now, I'm at last content. Anyway, I must get back to my life now that you people are all caught up. Thank you so very much to the folks who showed me so much love and care when I was publishing here, and also kept asking about me in the comments and everything long after I had stopped publishing. Now to the next story. 7. My mom and sister spent years trying to push me back into my ex's arms, but I married someone else, and now we're expecting a baby. When I was 16, I started seeing my best friend. Together until I graduated from high school, he proposed and I turned him down. My family asked me to rethink, as we may have a lengthy engagement or pledge to reunite, and there was much turmoil with them. For a while, my relationship with my 36-year-old brother weakened. The one with my sister, who is 32, never recovered. She got intolerable when she started dating my ex's brother, as she was confident my ex was the ideal fit for me. My siblings invited my ex everywhere, including several family holidays, but I said nothing since he was their friend as well. That is until my sister started advocating for our reunion. No matter the circumstance, my sister tried everything from try to arrange for us to share a room during holidays to setting us on blind dates. One invited my ex to it. I had enough after a time and urged my parents to step in. They stopped inviting my ex to events or letting him tag along so much and were upfront with my siblings. It was only marginally better, but while my brother withdrew, my sister did not. It all came crashing when I ran across my husband on a semester abroad. We simply clicked, even though he attended another university but from a different nation. For me, it was fantastic. We started dating a year ago. Except for my sister, my family was really glad for me. She persisted in saying I would grow out of the honeymoon phase. I obviously didn't, and I would quit talking to her if she pulled anything else after many, many battles and tried to get me back with my ex. After that caution, what does she do? She appoints one of her friends as my husband's date, asks me to spend all my time with the bridal party, aka my ex, and makes me her maid of honor. The poor girl tried to pass at my husband, and we didn't know until we were at the reception. Since we are not married, my sister stated it was acceptable to explore things with others. I left the celebration, and the next day I chatted with my brother and parents. I said that although I won't force them to make decisions, I will not interact with my sister ever again and will cut off all communication with them should they try to mend things between us. While my dad and brother indicated they would support my choice, my mom was distraught and sought to compromise. Apart from 2 tries from my mother, over 6 years I haven't spoken, written, or anything with my sister. From gifts to tantrums, my sister has tried everything to mend with me, but I hardly interact with her at all. If we're at a family dinner or gathering, I just pretend she doesn't exist. She tried to generate drama or made snide remarks at first, but she gave up when nobody supported her. She would not be involved in any planning, even though she did have a meltdown upon learning she was invited to my wedding. According to my brother, his relationship with my ex has worsened subsequently and he feels bad for continuing along for so long. Though they are not as close now, they still talk. The problem? I finally said we are having our first child. My mom's birthday was several weeks ago. Though my first granddaughter, this is not the first grandchild. Except my sister, everyone was really delighted. My mother observed that and asked me for tea one other day. Though my sixth sense warned me not to attend, I wanted to be optimistic. When I arrived, my sister's automobile caught my first attention. Then there was my sister, her husband, my ex, and his lunch as I walked in the door. Since my childish approach has lasted for so long, they wanted to intervene. My ex said he was merely trying to be romantic, but he realizes I wouldn't value it. His mother apologized already. I should forgive her since I was only hurting his sister for wanting the best for me. I was just texting my dad, brother, hubby, and looking at my mom incredulously. My brother-in-law had the guts to tell me I was a nasty person and I should learn how to act like an adult since I am now pregnant. My mother then started reading a letter about how hurt her daughters weren't close, how my sister was wrong but she was well-intentioned, etc. My sister then read her letter, started to cry and told me essentially another form of what the others did. I sat there until my brother showed up. I said nothing to anybody. Beyond anything I have ever seen, he was furious. He took my items and informed them all he was truly disgusted and disappointed. We left and remained in his car until my dad and husband showed up. By then I was just crying and he kept apologizing. I'm not sure what occurred there, but I emailed everyone except mom, including my lawyer's contact details attached, and said I never want to be bothered by any of them ever again. Should they, I will report it to the police. Nobody has got in touch, but my dad told me from experience that my mother and sister are hysterical. They assured him they hope to fix things and for my sister to be in my baby's life, maybe even acting as a godmother. Right now my dad is living with my brother. While some family members don't, others help me. Since my sister is now following the narrative that my husband is keeping me away from my family, I have even had mutual acquaintances phone me concerned about her well-being and asking me what happened. Although I detest having my business open to the public, I did follow the public path and shared a lengthy Facebook post about everything that happened. Though it wasn't exactly planned, I believe my sister, brother-in-law, and ex are deserving of dragging. Now my mother has been inconsolable, which makes me uncomfortable, but not as horrible as she made me feel with her little intervention. A few days ago, I agreed to meet with her and set the ground rules for any future contact, including therapy, family therapy, explicit boundaries, no sharing of information about me with my sister, and separate holidays. Above all, she will definitely be cut off should she ever do anything similar once more. She is ready to do it even though she feels this is excessive. She believed it meant instant access to baby news and that it was all fixed, but I explained to her it is a process and she has to show she has changed. My dad and brother continuously apologizing for not halting their refusal to interact with my sister earlier. Since they were able to go on and flourish, we have forgiven them. Though my MIL is dubious if cutting my mom's access to her grandchild is the best course of action, my husband supports whatever I decide upon. She feels it is finally my choice. About what to do with my mom, I'm conflicted. Commenter. What is their rationale now that you are expecting? Should you quit acting out make-believe with your husband and come to see your happily ever after resides with your ex? Regarding your child, what? Will your ex and his family welcome her? Oop. Although my sister says she is not trying to bring us together anymore, I cannot take away her opportunity to be an aunt. She stated I'm a poor sister since I spend so much time with my fantastic sisters-in-law. Of course, I disagree with her. My problem is knowing what to do with mom. Commenter. She wouldn't be your best friend without you dating your ex. OOP stands for, though I wish I could tell you, I have no idea her mental process is. My spouse believes she is simply psychologically sick. The ex, he still owns the mixtapes and CDs I created for us while we were dating, which is the most ludicrous and terrifying thing. He still finds great value in those objects, which are roughly 20 years old. Commenter. I'm kind of amazed your stalker ex, and yes, I will call him that, is still in your brother's life. Said another way, hold strong with your mother. No deadlines, she must prove she can follow your guidelines. Your sister has to live with the results of her deeds. OOP. To be fair to my brother, he did start to cut him off when I informed my parents I was somewhat uncomfortable with my ex always there. I lived away for college but would see my family on breaks. He also worked very hard to make my husband welcome, which degraded his relationship with my ex even more since he felt betrayed by my brother. My husband is one of my brother's closest friends nowadays. He only talks to my ex about our nephew or to avoid being nasty. Commenter. You have to understand that your mother is endorsing all of this. She knows your mom also believes it's appropriate, therefore a major reason Big Sis is ongoing this. This makes me somewhat depressed since my mother was always so friendly to my husband and now I'm questioning their whole relationship. For some background, neither Indian nor from a religious family are we. My parents were decent, polite ones. At first, they considered it to be a romantic thing, but subsequently came to see it wasn't. They pushed me to start college and all around. Now, I know my dad really helped me and my mom might have just followed along and had the same ideas as my sister. My sister suggested that we would be best friends with brothers. Update 1, same day, 16 hours later. The modification I wanted to post but couldn't. I want to thank you for the so far great support and guidance. Since there are too many for me to personally address, I would like to add a bit more information in my remarks. I broke up with my ex when I was 18. He is 47 today. Our separation sprang from my unwillingness to be engaged or married. The fixation of my sister on wanting both of us to be best friends and brides drives her insistence. Although my mother has always been rather kind to my husband, I am starting to believe it was all a show, which makes me rather depressed. Although he has 2 children with an ex and has been with other people since the separation, my ex has never been married. Given he has only ever wanted to marry me, my sister feels that is a really romantic thing to do. I should also emphasize that his compulsive actions go beyond myself. From the grapevine, I know he was quite similar with his children's mother. Now he is focusing on me since my sister is supporting it since she wants his help in returning me to my good graces so she can be a good aunt. When I informed my parents I was somewhat uncomfortable with my ex always there, my brother did start to cut him off. I lived away for college but would see my family on breaks. He also made a very great effort to make my husband welcome, which degraded his relationship with my ex even more since he felt deceived by my brother. My husband is now among the closest friends of one of my brothers. He only talks to my ex over our nephew, the son of my sister, or to avoid being nasty. Although I suppose only my dad was in agreement, both of my parents seemed to be encouraging of my not wanting to be around my ex so much. We would enjoy quality time together, thus my mom told my dad she was making my preferred tea and cookies on the day of the tea party, but he could remain. Thinking it would be a great sentiment from my mom, my dad left to hang with my uncle. Right now he is really irate. When they met, my husband tried very hard with my sister. Now he simply dismisses her and thinks she is mentally sick. Though we don't know whether she is or not, her behavior cannot justify anything. Their official perspective is that it would be best for me to confront the core of my problems with my sister, hence they invited the ex and his mother. Furthermore, my spouse and I are from the same race. We are not really religious, neither Indian. Neither my ex nor my spouse have any financial differences. If such exists, it would benefit my husband. Finally, the circumstances infuriate my sisters-in-law, both the wife of my brother and the sisters of my spouse. My husband's sisters and he will be discussing her comment with their mother. My brother and his wife are debating permanently cutting off all communication with my mother. They would let her visit my nephews for a while in between either. The more I read, the more I believe I might have to go no contact with my mother for the benefit of my child. Thinking all their interactions were phony breaks my spouse, and he becomes even more angry that she made me doubt I was a nice person. Although I know my family still has a lot of talks to go concerning my mother, I will surely be getting a restraining order against my sister and the ex. Here is the appropriate semi-update on the current situation of my family. My mother said she knew better even after we spoke. She claimed I am a nasty person and that she will be obtaining either custody or rights pertaining to grandparents. Though I am nothing like what she describes, I still panicked, so we wrote her a letter about it. Moving permanently, my dad informed her he could stand by her terrorizing his child. Also choosing to go no contact are my brother and his wife. Though I understand it appears somewhat abrupt, I believe I understated the degree of hopelessness I experienced following the intervention. Later on, my husband advised them to consider very carefully what they valued and to be friendly and open to everything but would not raise a child in a poisonous environment. Reason 3,271,637. I love my hubby for this. My mother and her fakeness really break my hubby. She will never get anything from him, he says, which is as much retribution he wants. My MAL was informed about her comment by my husband and sisters, who also helped her to see why it was rather out of line. She is, as many of you would guess, a very devoted mother from a lovely family. My dad and brother keep atoning for any part they contributed to this. It astounds my dad that we have reached this position. For him, he claims, everything is still strange. Still, they claim they are ready to assist me in battling any foolish struggle my mother or sister might muster and back me no matter what. Update 2. I would like to thank you for the nice words and encouragement. I chose to publish it here so it wouldn't be removed as the original was. Though they are both wonderful and terrible at the same time, I am trying to keep upbeat about everything. Sitting my nephews down, my brother and his wife told them Grandma was sick and tried to hurt Auntie Diamond and the tiny cousin. Grandma might not be living with them anymore, they said, but that does not mean she loves them less. Though the kids are smart, it was really difficult. Although Auntie is no longer in their life, they do not care as they hate her, not because of me alone, but rather because she is not exactly great with them either. When she was told, my mother lost it and began asserting she had rights and she would be able to visit her grandkids. Mostly because of my brother's MIL coming to visit, my dad is looking for a permanent apartment but will stay with us until January. We have the space. He is quite depressed. He has contacted divorce attorneys, moved bank records, etc. already. My mother has been sending him innumerable emails, messages and calls, but he responds to nothing. He was advised not to block her right now by the lawyer. He thought about maybe forgiving her, but a few days after my last post here I had a significant increase in blood pressure since she chose to visit my house with his sister. Though my mom knew I didn't want her there and my sister had never visited my house, I suppose that doesn't matter now. Knowing my mom, the cleaning girl let them in. I haven't had time to let her know she was not allowed to enter anymore. I observed the automobile, while I was returning from some errands. I skipped this time as well. I phoned every relative, and my husband's sister, was the one closest by. She challenged them and warned them either they left or I would call the cops on them for trespassing. They went and I started to feel ill. When we visited the doctor, they advised me that all the excitement was not good and that I should start unwinding or else the baby would suffer. Along with my brother, uncle, and husband, my dad headed home carrying every single item he could have thought of. According to my husband, my sister was also present and kept yelling at him that he wrecked her family. My dad told my mother and sister they nearly killed the infant and he also wants not to interact with any of them once more. Though it is not happening, my sister kept messaging my brother begging for aid. Since his mother has some crazy beliefs, my nephew is losing so much of his family. Hence, I am devastated and somewhat sad for him, but it is what it is. Regarding the custody and grandparent rights my mother wishes to exercise so much, my attorney wrote her a letter declaring she harmed the kid and my health and declaring, should she continue to harass me, it will become official legal business. Using her harassing of me as justification, my brother also sent her a letter. My mother and sister have both turned down attending treatment. Although they may be mentally sick, given all of this comes to light, it is clear they have long-standing agreement. Spending holidays with my family, maintaining health, and attending therapy will be my main priorities. Update 3. Hi, I figured it would be a good fit as I had some time and had several requests for an update. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for your comments, letters, and every piece of advice since we owe you for making us even more cautious than we were. A few asked me what process we utilized to find the baby's gender. After 20 weeks, I announced it. We wanted to be sure and feel comfortable about the announcement, hence we waited so long because we had experienced a loss in the past and we were ready to share it. We were also stupid enough to believe it would be especially meaningful for my mother. I sent it to my husband after publishing, and he spent a few days reading your comments, mails and advice. We cleaned the house and fortunately discovered nothing, but we still felt somewhat vulnerable and so visited a motel with my dad. Then we discovered a tracker on the vest of my fur baby. He has a humorous vest since he is a pretty small dog and gets cold a lot. I never would have considered checking there, but we found the tracker when my dad took him around the hotel grounds. My sister approached him about me and reconciliation. We moved since I was somewhat offended. We are fortunately able to afford it. Not merely empty, we are renting our former house as well as right now. That house used to be my favorite, but today I feel it's destroyed and contaminated in some sort. Sadly, not just me but also my brother, spouse, dad, and even the family of my husband feels the same about their residence. We changed our numbers, acquired new devices, and let friends, companies, and the police know. We began family and therapeutic sessions as well. Nevertheless, I have really forgiven my dad and brother, they still feel great shame about the circumstances. We are healing as a family nevertheless. Mom and sister argue they don't need therapy and they are not wrong. My dad created a new will whereby my sister's son receives a trust fund and some inheritance but my sister receives a nominal sum. He really is done with her. Though I felt awful for her, I resolved to concentrate on my baby. She is here, we are blessed. Since my mother is no longer with me, this is not the experience I considered. Yet many friends and relatives have really surprised us. Eventually, we were so worried that we began testing some people we knew nothing about by telling them I was about to go into labor. It worked like magic. We cut off those who were still providing information to my mother and sister. When we clarified the thinking, the rest made sense. We have been having a torrid affair because of my undying love for the baby, thus my ex, who my friends now call Bates, went around stating the baby was his. Nobody believes him now, but it caused my husband to call Bates's company and inform him of all the madness. Long story short, Bates was suspended while internal review was under progress. Given their requests for more and more information and their seeming contrition, I nearly guarantee he will be let go. My mother has searched for us, but none of the people who know of our whereabouts have contacted her either. Her dad's attorney wrote her a letter saying that since she is unstable, all letters will now go via attorneys. Just my dad and myself since I felt so horrible for him being by himself. I still feel terrible even though he has assured me he will be all right and that nothing is my fault. In the world, he has been the best diaper changer, feeder, and babysitter. As usual, my nephews are loving. My dad even visited the son of my sister. She started creating films threatening to injure herself if my husband stopped isolating her from the family, thus this came about. She seems to have stopped it when my dad emailed her regarding visiting her son and advised her he would call the police about her threats. Finally, someone mentioned that I gave Bates false hope. That cannot be more far from reality. I spent years uncomfortable since I assumed he would move on. After I spoke out and saw my husband, I spent a lot of time berating my sister over it. I married after my sister as I had a very long engagement. Though I still love my mother and sister, I put a good life for my family and me over that affection. Over this entire process, I have come across a great deal of compassion, love and loyalty. Strange as it sounds, I feel happy that all of this exploded. Hopefully, it is not too tangy. Many hugs from me. Update 4. My dad moved into the guest house when we formally settled into a new house. We concluded that although it would be great for him to be with us, we all still need our space after many conversations, in and outside of therapy. We will be choosing what to do with the previous place later. We are still renting it now. About 3 times a week now, my dad has grandchildren all gathered around. She refuses to allow him to have the child until she knows where he lives, which, to be fair, is a typical thing. But considering she is insane, we do not want her around. He still needs to see my sister's child separately. Mom objected to the lawyers about how unjust it is. Though little she can do about it, my dad still gets to visit every grandchild. My dad informed me he had a confession around a month ago and dear reader, my stomach started hurting. She still lets him see me since he pays for my nephew's, sister's child, tuition and babysitting. Not wanting to keep secrets, he felt so bad for hiding it. I told him to relax and that there was nothing wrong with it. My dad received an email on Mother's Day with a link to an Instagram account with a somber video on my mother and how most of her family has deserted her, as well as how much of a saint my sister is for being there for her. Though I just forwarded it to the attorney, it was truly pitiful and infuriated me. Dad formally asked for divorce in May, and the procedure is still underway. I believe that's final as my dad said he would sooner drink bleach than go back to her and my mom insists he is mistaken. My dad was given Father's Day by my brother and husband, who had a great time. That day, my sister uploaded a lot of items, but we wanted Dad to enjoy the day, hence we blocked him from ever knowing about it. They also went to a hotel, got a suite, and set up a tent in the middle area for the kids and a little tippy for the infant on a camping trip with them. To be honest, one of the finest things I've ever done is have a baby. Witnessing my husband be the wonderful father I knew would make me very happy. Though it is demanding, we have a lot of help. I have my rocks at my side, thus I am thankful beyond everything. My sisters-in-law and I now have a little calendar for sharing age-appropriate activities for the children. If they so want, we let them know they do not need to hang out with individuals they dislike and that their voices count. We have tiny get-togethers, brunches, etc. Right now, they are all fixated on the infant and claim to be her defenders. To be honest, without my sister present, family time is now a delight rather than a chore. She simply saps the enthusiasm from the room. I know it's awful to say. Along with staying in the guest room roughly once a week, my meal enjoys spending time with the baby. She replied gently that she wanted nothing from the infant for sleepovers or anything. She respects and listens to me and sure, I have broken down occasionally as I miss my mom a lot. I miss the mother I had, or believed I had, not the one who informed me I would be a nasty woman or awful mother. According to my therapist, it's a marathon and to keep the positive first. About good, Bates was let go. Not only that, but his industry's reputation suffered nuclear-level harm as well. So was his brother's, but he still has his job as far as I know since Bill is not in an industry that gives reputation much thought. About his hurt, how I'm denying him what is his, and how my husband is so intimidated by him that he had to go and professionally destroy him since he cannot ruin anything else, Bates sent me a 12-page, double-sided, single-spaced letter. I say seems as my lawyer reviewed it and sent me a synopsis. I did not read it. The grapevine also told me, no, I don't ask anyone, they just tell me since they know he is stalking me, that the mother of his children relocated and he didn't even care and stated it was for the best. This man wants to play family with the baby and me and hardly gives his children any thought. Mommy already let him move back in with her, hence sadly he won't be homeless or anything. I doubt he will learn anything from this. Not the most flashy update, but rather just what is. Oh, and with my dad's okay, my spouse burnt or donated every single item my mom or parents handed him. Even with memories, he believes, life is too short to allow her room in his life. Commenter. I am rather happy you are visiting all that with the intact good portions of your family. I appreciate Bates as a nasty guy, but has he ever done anything relevant or connected to his work? I truly don't see the firing component. OOP. It's a really close-knit one. And when you have a bad reputation, it shocks you. He is not giving up his business. Before this, he was considered as a good but detached feminist single dad. He even informed certain colleagues that I stayed with him for more than our scheduled visit. Commenter. OOP, I have respect and am sorry for what you faced. I am reading your entire story from the best of Reddit from my house in India at 1:30 a.m. As healthy and pleasant as you both are, I hope your child develops to be as well. Also, I hope this whole mess ends soon so you may be back with your mother following the end of her XF dream. Respect you, keep fighting. OOP. That's a great attitude, but I will never chat to my mom once more. I miss her a lot. I shed a lot of tears. The baby deserves the greatest family we can offer, and my mother is not part of it. She is not the person I thought she was. Though I have to safeguard the baby, it hurts. New update. Long time, no saw. Though first I want to thank you for all of your comments and letters. I have some updates for you. I value it greatly as every time I log into this account I am inundated with essentially wonderful stuff. Nobody will probably read this, but for those that want updates, they are mostly decent. Let's get right on with that out of the way. Now, following several arguments and outbursts from my mother, my parents are divorced. That is it, kept the house and received a lump payment. We are all quite thrilled for my dad, who seems like a new man. A little flashback. We didn't terminate our cleaning lady during all the hoopla. This woman had been serving my husband's family for decades, and her absence from work due to what her insane relatives did caused great anxiety in me. We are not slobs either, and she is not kneeling or anything like that polishing floors. In any case, my dad told her she was on paid vacation till we moved into a new house and to kindly wait for us should she wish. She was not fired at all. Her family was likewise really delighted about it. Because they were so appreciative of what he was doing for them, my dad occasionally started gathering food and goods from them. Well, my dad is currently seeing her. Her sister runs her own nail business. She is a really beautiful woman who has grown children, hence she can relate to the dynamics occurring occasionally. She is happy with him as he has been quite clear that he is neither moving or getting married. She values her independence. When her mother learned about his new relationship, she almost passed out. She kept claiming it was a late midlife crisis and he had to turn to be a sugar dad. I obviously heard this since I don't interact with her, but last I heard she is struggling. She depends on my dad and struggles as she was never adept in budgeting. She had to stop making insane purchases. My dad is not assisting my sister with money anymore, hence she is also suffering. You see, he was ready to stay on helping for my nephew's benefit, but then things became very difficult. Starting to nickname my child an affair baby, my nephew said she is not with her own father. Saying they were only he, not my kids' cousins, he pushed one of my nephews on my husband's side during a birthday party, calling my other nephews delusional. The children were bewildered and thus very confused, but they told an adult right away. Dad spoke with him, but he kept repeating it. When he spoke with my sister, she claimed she had no way to stop a child from speaking the truth and that not all children always do. He is severing them, he informs her till something changes. She sobbed and fretted, but she also was really tenacious. My nephew attends public school now since my spouse forced my dad to cut them off. Bates, well, he is still without work. I know I was vague about it, but some of it had to do with stalking, irony much, and he worked in a field connected to vulnerable women. He was therefore sacked for this. The company he worked for didn't want this all over them. He has sent 2 more very long, handwritten, rambling letters. As he only has my lawyer's address, guess who has the honor of reading, compiling and submitting those rams? My lawyer is a champ, I love him. Apart from that and the rumors, I have not had any negative experiences involving him except one. A random woman approached me at the grocery shop to find out whether my child was Bates's baby. I was startled and froze. She stated he had a picture of us on his page when I asked her what she was on, and I should feel bad for hurting such a decent man. Turns out he is still following the story that my child is his and that I loved him so greatly. That is all old news. The picture comment really startled me the most. There is nothing public or like that about this picture. That is it. It was emailed once to a family group. I told my husband right away, and he got furious but under control. We made the decision to smoke the rat. To cut a long tale short, my dad's 2 sisters were providing information to my mother. Though he was somewhat let down, my dad had no questions about cutting them off. They still implore him to meet with them once more. His family and mine are doing fantastic. We have seen them frequently and have spent some family holidays since the last update. They also hardly interact with my sister and mother. Since it turns out she was not a fan of our mom but preserved the peace, my SIL is actually quite glad about it. Also quite beautiful are my in-laws. She is over the moon about us allowing male overnight babysitting now. Her grandchildren are all happy to be with her. Sometimes she has all of them under one roof. She used to be a flight attendant, hence their preferred game is to act like an airline. We don't worry as they love her generally and we know she is nice with our children. My mother kept stalking her, so she had to make her socials private. She prepared her own bed, hence I am sure she is quite jealous. Last but not least, my hubby keeps me sane even in small matters. We wonder whether we ought to adopt another baby or even have one. We still have to decide, but we have a tremendous support network and the advantage to have these talks. I still long greatly for my mother. When I know there are milestones I can no longer enjoy with her, I occasionally cry. Yet, she is a bad person. Thus the safety of my family comes first. Last interesting tidbit. They went camping last Father's Day. It was excellent save from some poorly placed sunburns and bug bites. Now to the next story 8. My wife's descent, from new job to infidelity, drugs, and tragedy. How our marriage unraveled in just 4.5 months. 4 and 5 months ago, my 37F wife landed a new job. She also befriended some recently arrived people. I, 36M, didn't particularly enjoy them. They were all SJW types, professional victims, hard-bitten feminists. These ladies will scream at you for either not opening the door for them or opening it for them. Neither way is a winner either. I mostly laughed it off at first, but over the past 2 months I observed some unsettling changes in my wife. Married for 11 years, we have 2 children, 10F and 8M. It continued to get worse. She would accuse me of all kinds of stupidity, including that I was born evil since traditionally men subjugated women. Everything I did for her, things she would usually value, became justification for a conflict. It all amounted to garbage. I tried to be composed. Usually, these debates would finish with me stating something like, "I haven't done anything harmful toward you. I am only guilty of loving you." Usually it would send her murmurs, and the next day she would be back attempting the same thing with somewhat different justifications. About 5 weeks ago, I had a strong sense of things being quite wrong. She returned late at night without informing me of her delay. Her phone was unreachable to me. She behaved aloofly and was rather drunk. She dismissively told me the next day that I read too much into things and that I was being domineering. This repeated a few more times. Though I believed she had erased a lot of her messages, I tried to snoop on her phone but couldn't find anything conclusive. I did come across a post among one of her new acquaintances talking about how she would approach me about an open relationship. Her adultery was what my gut feeling was telling me right away. My wife mentioned in the thread she would discuss it with me on what is currently the second Monday of December. Christmas is being celebrated with my children among their grandparents. We were supposed to be joining them today. She asks me what I think of an open relationship anyway, trying to initiate this discussion during breakfast like it's simply a thought out of the blue. Fortunately, I knew how to be ready. I had already started recording. Having been reading a lot on Reddit, I understood there was absolutely no way to undo this. Getting out of this with some shred of pride and self-esteem intact was my best hoped result. From now on, my priorities are only safeguarding the kids and myself. I stayed silent, neither yelling or screaming. I entered jaw-clenched interrogation mode straightforwardly. She was all smug up until this point, but it vanished right away when she noticed my expression. Me? Who is she? She? What do you mean? She attempts to project innocence, as though she doesn't know. Me? Don't treat me like an idiot if you wish to have this talk with me. At least you are sincere. Should you be dishonest, what good is this conversation for? She? What do you mean? Me? We cannot have the conversation you wish about our relationship if you lie to me right now. You seem to be hiding something, clearly. Who then is the man you fucking? She? I am not. Me? Oh my God, there's more than one. She exclaimed, me. Don't. Just avoid lying, fucking. You have simply completely undermined my faith in you. You lie, as I can tell. I divorce you or you are honest and we work through this. Right now our marriage is over. Not arguments, not debate, not nothing. Exactly divorce. Do you realize? She said, but, me, say it. Do you follow? Do you realize I would divorce you if you lie? Say it like that. Do you realize I already know a great deal? You seem to me like a book. Should I find you lying? We are off. Tell me you have an understanding. She says, I understand. She then relates to me about 2 one-night stands she went on with friends. I probe their names, whether they are married, if she wore protection, etc. Both of them are married males having children. Then she tells me she intends to pursue this since it's beneficial for her and I have no right to control her. She also tells me she intends to sleep with a colleague at work. Fuck, what the fuck? I also ask about the colleague. His name is his wife's. He is married but, as she says, in an open relationship as she wants us to be in. She says she will arrange for some of her friends to see me. One of them seems to be rather keen. In actual fuck, what the hell? Having seen this friend, I would not touch her with a barge pole. I say to her I have little interest. She shows me the sequence to open her phone when I ask for it. I closed myself in my office while she went to the toilet. She flips out. While she was back pounding on the door, I ran recovery software on the phone for deleted stuff and came over a lot of agonizing proof. 30 minutes later, I also downloaded a spying tool from an online vendor. I handed her the phone when I got out and urged her to go. She persisted in her arguments. I mainly answered with single words. Over all of this, she hardly seemed regretful. She was ranting at me that I was behaving controlling, holding her back like men always kept women back, that I never loved her, that she had every right to do this, that she expected me to just accept this, that it wasn't a big issue, etc. I refrained from responding. I really scarcely spoke at all. I simply packed her belongings while she whirled, calling at me. I found myself at the front door, patiently waiting till she ran out of steam. She grudgingly headed to her parents' house at last. I informed her she was single now so she could do whatever she wanted as she was headed down the stairs. I could not control her anymore. In January my lawyer would be in touch. I just slammed and shut the door as she turned to answer. Later on, I observed as she talked about it among her friends. They were telling her that she deserved better than me, that there were empty threats from my side, that she was strong and demanding what she was entitled to, that I wouldn't follow through. You want to gamble? They're telling her that she could just accuse me of domestic violence if necessary. Frightened me greatly. One of them accused her ex-husband of abuse, then went to detail how she had screwed over him and taken everything from him. Right now, I have cameras ordered for my residence. I realize I have to log everything now. Simply said, what I was seeing defied belief. I have never, ever threatened her in whatsoever capacity. She then began massaging her AP to align. They decided to convene at a hotel. I felt somewhat shocked. I searched the internet for AP's wife. It wasn't too long. I told her everything, including the continuous hotel activities, and got her to agree to me as a friend on Facebook. She hung up grateful to me. 2 hours later I received a video from her. She confronted them when she went to the motel. From the yelling, this wasn't the first time her husband had lied. You're emptying, asshole. Are you doing this to me once more? To the young ones once more? We were done if you ever did this again, I told you, she screamed. Then she entered the room and captured my wife getting ready on the side of the bed. That first time, I started to throw. The wife of the AP smacked her and cursed her out. I messaged my wife to let her know I watched the hotel's video and that I never want her close by ever. She seems to view our interactions as some kind of pissing competition, in which case she, in her perspective, is winning. She is absolutely insane. I find nothing comprehensible. She seems to be detached from reality and to not fully grasp that we are separating. I told her relatives in the WhatsApp group of my wife that her adultery is the reason we are divorcing. Before cutting off from the gathering, I thanked them for making me welcome and part of the family. From her side, I have had a few calls and messages. I haven't read them or replied. Simply said, I lack the will for it. I told my folks everything when I phoned them. My father messaged my wife informing her she would not be welcome for Christmas. Right now I'm at my parents' place and spoke with my boss. He is allowing me time off till mid-January to straighten things out. I have been observing my wife's progressively hysterical conversations with her new acquaintances. My wife doesn't think she has lost her family, that her marriage is over, or that her AP doesn't really give a damn about her. She has messaged me a lot and even visited my parents' house requesting to be let to celebrate Christmas with us. Should she refuse to go, my father threatened to contact the police. I'm Googling divorce attorneys right now, crying my soul out. Though I believe I have been in shock, once I arrived at my parents' house the agony really hit me. Simply said, I find no logical sense to it. Reading their conversations and talking with her hurts me so much. I answered her text just twice. The first? What you say has no bearing. I don't know your name. You do not represent my wife. My wife never would have smiled while destroying my heart and soul. We are going to get divorced. You have no influence or authority to demand anything from me ever again. What you say or wish matters not to me. We are done here. The second, like I said, you are not my wife. You are not known to me. My wife would never subject our kids to the misery of growing up in a damaged household. Whichever you are, you appear to be pleased with your work. My dearest friend, my wife, was lovely, compassionate, and thoughtful. You are an abomination of self-obsessions and self-absorptions. The last message stopped the others. At times the suffering is quite intolerable. I wish none of this occurred. Though I wish I could get back with her like previously, I simply cannot do that to myself. The worst Christmas I have ever had. Though I couldn't help myself, I told the children Mommy wants no more children. She wants to be with other men and knows we will divorce. They are inevitably unhappy. Luckily, I have my parents here to assist. They treat them with love and affection while I am a total wreck. Though I am not going back to her ever, I will strive to get back on my feet for the sake of my children. I wish I had waited till after Christmas so I could straightforwardly enter counseling. I immediately blurted it out when they inquired when their mother would visit. I have no idea what happened. Should I return to her, I would never be able to see myself in the mirror. Her actions clearly show unacceptably disdain and callousness. I'm gone. Simply said, I find this incomprehensible. Why should she assume she could demand anything from me right now? Is she psychologically sick or anything else? I apologize for the rambling diatribe. I simply needed to let things out. Edit, I am good with monitoring. I spoke with a friend's attorney, who is familiar with my membership comes with the phone. I own it. I'm good since my wife is using it. I own it and the subscription, so monitoring my own gear is not prohibited. Update 1. Since I last wrote, then a lot has changed. Though the fact is I've been a pitiful, crying mess since I last posted, I wish I could own it. My wife's conversations with her friends captured me in some kind of obsession. These conversations revealed a lot of crazy and nasty comments. Ultimately though, it was when my STBXW detailed in very harsh terms how her marriage and particularly her children were a burden in her life, that she had been deprived of the opportunity to be a successful woman living up to her full potential. She spoke of me, her spouse, how I was a repressive agent preventing her from leading a happy life. She lacked a lucrative profession, plenty of casual sex, etc., mostly due to her family. I broke right now. It was too much for me. I read and reread every line of every email and conversation I had over and over again for the next 30-ish hours. Looking back, she omitted any specifics about our actual burden or oppressive behavior. It was just general remarks without any references or proof. I have never stopped her from doing anything, actually. For practically everything I pay for. Her part-time job's minimum pay would not be sufficient for anyone. Actually, even if she would constantly drop out halfway through, I have encouraged her interests, desires, and aspirations even if she did foolish actions in class. Every day I made sure to tell her I loved her and thanked all she did for the family. I would take her out, romance her, be at her side anytime she needed me. If this is oppression, then I would like some, kindly. Still, I digress. I passed out once, at some point during reading. My 3 closest buddies were in the kitchen with Dad cooking dinner when I woke up. These guys have been in my life since childhood. We'll call them Frank, Bob, and Mike. Having invited them, my dad brought them up to date. I quickly broke down once more, and until Friday evening I was entirely absent. His ex-military friend Mike lost his left arm under the elbow. Actually, we were all there for him during his recovery. His wife left him. Fortunately, they did not have any kids. Mike did fine. He adopted 2 children and acquired a really nice girlfriend a few years ago. He arranged a Zoom conversation with his psychotherapist, who supported him along his rehabilitation. He greatly helped me to make sense of my emotional situation. Though he focused on amputees, he told me most wives unfortunately flee after their husbands are maimed, and his experiences and lessons really helped me. Actually, he asked me to see my soul, identity and spiritual being as largely related to my marriage and husbandly responsibilities. That part is dead now. Like an amputee will experience phantom pain in a missing limb, I will experience phantom agony from the dead part of my identity. We talked for hours, and since then I have been consistently better. Bob works in a security company as an executive. He's rather well off. I don't really know what he does, but he never talks much about his job. Sunday morning, I was chatting with a lawyer I could never in my wildest thoughts ever afford to even talk to after Bob contacted some law firms on retainer for the company. Bob was bullied a lot and has always been a major geek. He assured me he would pay the bill, I should not worry about it. Having finally been able to pay me back for the beatings I often gave him, so disrupting his bullies, made him delighted. Married with 7 children, Frank teaches in a private school for youngsters. Exactly, 7. To death, my children just love him and his family. Frank has been keeping an eye on my children's welfare and needs while I recover and straighten things out. Yesterday was a fairly busy day. Early in the morning it began with an STD screening. The bitch handed me chlamydia, another 6-month screening recommendation. When I found out, my self-pity party changed to sheer fucking wrath. That is me. On gloves off. Completely customized. If I could get away with it, I would offer her nothing. The attorney found the ex-husband of my wife's feminist buddy who boasted about screwing him over. It seemed really simple using the court records. I never would have given that any thought either. I conferred with him on WhatsApp. He gave me many thanks, but he also told me about what this harpist did for him. I can now project from my STBXW what to expect. It turned out to be terrible. Following our conversation, I was ready for a fight. I am getting ready for battle. Hearing how he had been homeless and how he scarcely had seen his children in 4 years, all based on his ex-wife's lies, was painful. Though I am at a disadvantage as a man in the judicial system, I will make sure I have loads of proof. Due in great part for our son's benefit, my lawyer advised a preemptive strike using a restraining order based on her harsh and aggressive remarks about men in general. I'm seeking full custody as growing up in a home with an openly anti-male parental figure is clearly very detrimental. I advised the attorney to start straight away. She expects my wife to be served with the restraining order today. Using Zoom, I spoke with my STBX. Remember that she showed up at the door to argue with my dad and hasn't contacted me at all. She doesn't seem to care about any of us as she hasn't contacted the kids or anyone else either. The call was utterly strange. She clearly was attempting to appear her best, she was fully done up with great cleavage. I have not seen her looking that polished for years. She tried to get me off into a fight to make me enraged during the whole chat. I cooled myself rather well. My attorney had advised on what to ask for. Apparently, if efforts are made for a peaceful divorce before seeking a contentious divorce, things go really well. I had the call under recording. I even mentioned to her I was. My STBXW turned out not to be disappointing. She began with this ridiculous claim that there are 2 kinds of penises. One type that shrinks and increases depending on whether they are erect or not, and another type roughly the same size whether they are erect or not. What exactly in the fuck? Someone opens a call to their husband like that? She then pondered on how excited she was about the end of the present limitations so she could go out and personally study this more. I said simply that I was only interested in talking about our divorce. I had no interest in her interests. She became quite nasty when I refrained from latching on the bait as she intended. She muted herself once, telling me she was off to the bathroom. I then observed her conferring with her friends about what she could do to me. She cursed me just for being a male multiple times over the call. I still had this weird sensation that she was seeing this as some sort of game, that she was in control, and that I had no other choice except to put up, shut down, and give in to everything she wanted. We made no improvement on our actual divorce, so I came to the conclusion, okay, great, a contentious divorce it is then. You handed me chlamydia by the way, and unlike you, I haven't been sleeping with anyone else, hence you better get yourself to the doctor. She simply scowled at me, saying, you're right, I don't believe you. I no longer care. I really have no idea at all what is going on with her at this point. The lawyer was startled to say the least, when I sent her the recording. At this point, everyone finds my wife crazy. She is perhaps. I can really utilize the chat logs also in court as I own her phone and the subscription. As it turns out, monitoring my own gadget as much as I choose is completely lawful. The harpies were debating fiercely following our summons, but I could at last set it aside. What they discuss doesn't matter to me anymore. Unless something I haven't told them about, my attorney is sure we will win this thing. There we are then. Although it still hurts, at this stage I may consider it as phantom pain. I am going for the jugular. No prisoners, have given up feeling guilty about myself. I have to look after my children and myself. I am fine, my children will be too. I will make sure they receive as much therapy as they demand. My STBXW will shortly be a memory, and I will begin to create a new, better life. Edit. She didn't tell me, but I discovered today she knew about the chlamydia and underwent treatment. Bitch. Fuck. She was smiling and kissing her new buddies about it. Update 2. I receive a lot of comments like I am somehow winning or strong or in some other sense going out on top. When I go over my postings, I can see that my resentment of the circumstances filters through and I could seem too calm and certain of myself. To be honest, I am not. I want this never to have happened. As the children mature and begin their own life, I wish my family was still together and that I had a long, lazy, comfortable life ahead of me with my wife. Here none of anyone is the winner. The whole train is burning in the ditch. My wife has gone off the rails. I'm not sure her problem is. She is acting as though nothing is amiss yet refuses to see a medical practitioner for probable mental problems. She seems not to be regretful or guilty. She behaves as though I'm irrational for not simply embracing everything she wants. Not even the children have spoken since D-Day. I have to, so I am divorcing her, acting and forward separating our life. She has left me without options. By now, there is no going back. I wish so much this wasn't absolutely required. I weep myself to sleep every night for my personal loss and the knowledge that my children will now grow up in a shattered family. I can never trust her ever again. The fact that my children, in truth, no longer have a functional relationship with their mother hurts as well. From your child's perspective, why does mommy not want to see me anymore? She loves me, not sure. How the devil do you respond to that? Please let me know if anyone knows. I sure as hell don't. Every day I get up and tell myself that my heart is already shattered into so many broken pieces that it cannot ever mend. Only to be proven incorrect all day, every day. She doesn't care. My wife still doesn't know I can see her messages. She is quite sure that I would never leave her and that my response to her behavior is completely irrational. She continues to disparage me, our marriage, and our children around her acquaintances. Why she hates us so much is beyond me. None of the things she charges us of doing to her pals has come true. My attorney secured a temporary restraining order against her, as I already noted. Yesterday morning there was a hearing. Since no further direct threats were reported, it was not extended. Using her knowledge of my infection as a threat to try to have her agree to an unquestionable divorce, my attorney advised I hope we could split reasonably using a logical approach. I always assume the worst possible outcome and detest the fact I have to view her as the adversary. I would be able to live with her if she wanted to leave me, but why would I have to be pushed into this somewhat hostile process? Why does she want to damage the individuals who used to love her as much as feasible during the process? From this, what likely benefits she could get? I would value any analysis on this. Simply said, it makes no sense to me. Should I visit court, I most likely will have to pay her a lump payment for the equity in our house, etc. Since she shows little interest in the kids, I'm hoping I will gain custody of them should it get to court. I will most likely not be liable for alimony either. My attorney advised us to try to get her agreement for a friendly divorce. I agreed. Perhaps this week we can meet with my STBXW and her representative. The ex-husband who fell for the lying harpist stayed New Year's Eve with the kids and myself. It is simply amazing how unfairly the legal system treats fathers. Now, should we go to court? I have no fantasies of a fair procedure. His ex lied her head off. The court simply accepted it as reality without any evidence at all. Not since has he seen his children. He almost buckled under the pressure of paying irrational amounts of child support and alimony. He had been musing of permanently calling off things. He has hope again with the fresh data he gets from me. Together, we spoke with my lawyer. She advises him to sit on the evidence until my wife's and her counsel's meeting. If he acts right now, it will demonstrate to us that we have access to all their communications. My lawyer wants to complete the divorce between my wife and me as quickly as feasible and as seamlessly as possible. Right now, I only hope I can get away from her. Should she choose to fight, it may stretch on for an endless period and cause great anguish. All I need is freedom. If I schedule a meeting or if we proceed straight to a contested procedure in court, I will post an update. Update 3. Sadly, strange circumstances still exist. Yesterday afternoon was my meeting with my STBXW and lawyer. She stated she neither had nor needed a lawyer, showed up 30 minutes late and omitted bringing one. Rather, she brought one of her new harp buddies, who was under sensation till following the hearing. My attorney had given me rather clear directions on behavior. I was not to respond negatively to whatever they said. If they approached me, I was to answer in a non-confrontational way or, if at all possible, favorably. I had to keep my mouth shut entirely if my lawyer laid one or both of her hands flat on the table. So they arrived late without masks, naturally. My STBXW followed the harp censor and tried to offend me and wind me in each manner she could have thought of. My attorney tried to start the conversation on the current topic, our divorce, but they were just fooling about. Many times they chuckled at their own disparaging remarks directed toward me. Watching it made one truly disgusted. My wife still thinks this is all a hoax, Hence it is obvious that I cannot divorce her. Only she, in her opinion, can divorce me, only if she so chooses. Should she do, she expects she will have everything. I sat there wondering, what the fuck is it going on? I said nothing of much significance. I answered just a few times, and my responses fit, yes, you're probably right, or I really don't know. At last they ran out of steam, and my attorney got the word in and began to present the suggested amicable divorce settlement. She first claimed that I would pay my wife a sizable lump sum of $60,000 for the equity in the property, investments, etc., and that I was ready to be giving for a fast, peaceful resolution. Before my STBXW became all enthralled, coupled with her harp pal pushed on by the horrific-looking harp next to her, my lawyer hardly finished the sentence. Where would my STBXW want to sign? Several times my attorney inquired whether my STBXW wanted to sign straight away without first reviewing the rest of the agreement. No, she said. She began mentioning their desire to get to the pub and when she may anticipate getting the money. My attorney thus summoned someone in, muttered something to them, and there was a frenzy of action. We were asked to sign 2 copies when an older woman requested our identity paperwork. The elderly lady stamped it after we were done. I subsequently learned she was a notary. Almost poised on the palm of her hand at this moment, my attorney thanked my STBXW and the harp and said to them we were done. My wife dropped off without even carrying her copy of the agreement with her. She left it on the table. Looking at her flat hands and at me, my lawyer examined clearly. She wanted me to keep quiet while they were still inside the building. My lawyer smiled at me and said, "Congratulations," when we could see them crossing the parking lot. She then went into great detail on how this was the strangest session she had ever attended for a negotiated divorce. She informed me she will forward the copy of my STBXW to her upon a hearing before the judge or, should she obtain a lawyer requesting it. It was buried in my lawyer's drawer till then. On the surface then I seemed to be going through this divorce a lot more easily than I first imagined. My STBXW can still fight this and get legal counsel. She would try to call in every conceivable favor she could think of to get me a hearing with a judge as quickly as possible, probably by video conference, my lawyer advised me. After the advice I received on Reddit, I also hired a PI. Yesterday, he showed pictures of my wife kissing 2 separate people at 2 different bars. She then checked into a hotel with one of them. I have a lot of proof stacked up should I need it. If such comes to pass, I simply hope it is sufficient. Just $60K and I'm free. My wife agreed to provide me complete custody, only a one-time payment, no spousal maintenance, nothing. I simply have to find the money now. I have a strategy, and Bob volunteered to front me the whole sum I should need. I still don't sense this as being real. I completely expect her to pull the "here's my aggressive lawyer and I'm accusing you of molesting the kids and domestic abuse" to trick out of her hat. My attorney advised me to pay for everything I always pay for, keep a very low profile, and not even gently rock the boat. The advice is to simply wait, avoid talking to anyone we both know. React to nothing, basically zero initiative until the hearing. I only have to remain patient and hope for the best right now. Update 4. Therefore, yesterday was the hearing. I consider myself to be essentially divorced. The paperwork will take 4 to 6 months to be official, but at this stage essentially nothing anyone can do to alter the result. My wife's and my own stopping it jointly is the only alternative. I am really fucking weary. I haven't slept in. I'm not sure how many days, hence if I'm somewhat erratic, I'm sorry. I simply have to clear this all out. I have to blow off some. After I type everything out, hopefully I will be able to fall asleep. 12 days after turning in the documentation, my great attorney scheduled an early hearing. She certainly made some favors calls on this one. I am straying from the path. It has been crazy from the weekend forward to today. Many police personnel appeared at my door early Friday morning with a warrant to search the house. I felt somewhat perplexed. Concerned for the children, I asked whether I could bring them outside while they conducted their search. Thank goodness they agreed to that. They hardly told me anything, although I did get a copy of the warrant. I was so rocked that I cannot really make any sense of it. Everybody who claimed that the behavior of my ex-wife was most likely drug-related was correct. One may say that drugs at least had a part in this. The police started utterly destroying my residence. When I phoned my attorney, she spoke with them. Unfortunately, at the time there was nothing that could be done since the warrant was current. Though I never gave it any thought at the time, I now have cameras all around in case I get falsely accused. I have sound and videos covering everything. Should I wish, I may possibly file a claim later. To be really honest, I'm not sure whether I have the will or energy for it. Perhaps I will simply mark a line over it and carry on. Then my ex and her 3 harp buddies drove my car while drunk and high, slamming into a house at great speed. I knew nothing then. They all had narcotics in and on their bodies, they were all intoxicated and they all were detained. The crash treated them really roughly. The passenger seat occupant is in critical condition. They have no idea whether she will even make it. Let us call her Henrietta, the lead harpist who boasted about lying about her ex-husband in court and screwing over. Let us call her ex-husband Henry. I now live somewhat close to him. Thank goodness the search turned up nothing. I said that my ex moves with her parents. She no longer resides here. I have no idea what she is doing. No, I never let Henrietta use my car, etc. I simply collapsed when I returned to the house. Everything was absolutely destroyed. I suppose it was just the last straw. I could only think of calling my dad, who brought the kids and me home to remain with my mother. While I was crying on the back porch, eating my mom's incredible comfort food, feeling bad about myself, my dad gathered a huge gathering including 26 friends and family. They restored and cleaned my house totally. They cleaned every room, including clothes, dishes, furniture, even the walls and ceiling. Never has it been this tidy. They even corrected all the minor issues, such wobbly door hinges, etc. I simply couldn't fathom they would treat me in such a manner. How I can ever pay them back is unknown. Thanks to my friends and family, during the weekend I went from feeling suicidal to really good. Henrietta's residence revealed more drugs, and her partner was absent, no babysitter either, just the kids alone. CPS picked the children, and on Saturday Henry was granted temporary emergency custody after showing the judge the chat logs together with evidence of abandonment and drug heaps. He was granted custody really easily. Henry has scarcely seen his children for the past 5 years. He is over the moon delighted. He had been gathering funds to fight Henrietta in court at the time. He still has to visit court to finalize things, but right now the chances are really favorable. Everyone believes Henrietta will have to serve time. If her companion misses it, most likely it will be serious time. Henry will next try for recompense for all the bullshit Henrietta put him through and child support. Though he isn't expecting much on this, to be honest I believe he doesn't want to waste his time battling in court. He wants to be with his children to see to it they lead happy lives. Henrietta has been somewhat negligent toward them, quite obviously. Bob has been fantastic and arranged Henry's renting flat through a buddy. I now understand that concerning Bob's personal or professional life, I know absolutely nothing. I am going to correct that. Still, I find myself off course once more. Driven off the road and into a house, Henrietta was behind the wheel. They were all somewhat damaged, and given the circumstances, the drugs and the alcohol, search warrants were issued for everyone's house. My ex still uses my house as her residence. I made the decision on Sunday to sell this house and start living far away immediately. I fear this will most likely recur. She called me on Sunday from her parents. Their residence underwent search as well. Saturday they visited their daughter in jail, and they no longer believe anything she says to them. Long story short, she has been lying to them about everything. They came over to discuss on Sunday. She told them she was staying with me and that we were trying to work things out. The evenings she has been out partying and cheating. They knew nothing about what she had done to the kids or herself or what was really happening. She admitted she cheated, but she basically told them it was a one-time intoxicated error. My wife contacted me Monday trying to convince me to post bail. Her parents have already told her no. It is $15,000. Following our conversation, my attorney created some documentation declaring that the bond is deducted from the settlement until she shows up for court and it is released. Her mother was listed in the agreement as the caretaker of the leftover sum. My lawyer wanted me to get my wife out as she wanted her to have no justification for skipping the hearing. My ex signed as she had no options. Monday afternoon she was let go. Her parents tell me she refused to follow their criteria for her to continue living there, terms like ceasing drugs, committing to rehab, adopting an open everything policy, abandoning the bad pals, etc. She supposedly left their residence Tuesday to hang around with some of her new buddies. She missed the hearing. After presenting the judge everything, including the incidents over the weekend, I will have complete custody. The agreement we signed guides the settlement. Just 30 minutes, it was quick. Although it will take 4 to 6 months to pass the paper mill, this is actually done. Not really much can be done to stop this now. That takes us to now. I couldn't seem to go to sleep. Everyone was praising me and acting as though I had a significant triumph, but sure as hell doesn't feel like I won anything. Right now, this is only suffering. I still find great love for my wife. I am sure it is over and that there is no going back. She was my best friend. My soulmate up until lately. And even if I feel my love for her has been fatally damaged, it still aches like a motherfucker. In this there are no winners. I lose, so does my wife. My children lose. Not really have the words. I feel as though I should be celebrating that I lost both of my legs, yet since I acted, one of my legs could have been cut below the knee while the other remained cut above. It seems almost like that when people compliment me. Like they are praising me for saving half a kneecap while losing both of my legs. I thus cannot really sleep, and when I do I am caught in horrible dreams that rouse me covered in cold perspiration. I apologize, I am just grumbling a little here. Still, the hospital called today to let me know my ex is hospitalized. She still is on my health insurance, and I remain her emergency contact. She will have to remain for observation for a few days. She has lost some teeth and damaged her jaw. When I got there, it turns out some of her new friends had rather brutally beat her up. I brought her parents. From my wife's phone, word came out that Henry had chat logs of Henrietta boasting about what she had done to Henry. They thrashed my wife and kicked her out believing she had given the logs to Henry. She still doesn't seem to realize that I have access to check her phone. Quite amazing. Until I get the paperwork in hand, I will continue to pay for insurance, her phone, etc., just as I do now. I simply won't believe it until I can see it right before me. At the moment she has nothing. Could she perhaps return home? She asked. I said simply, no way in hell. Unless she cleans and keeps clean for at least 1 year, her mother is not giving her 1 penny. They offered her to live with them under the former tight restrictions. I find it difficult to picture her managing if she rejects. Since everything started, I have only seen remorse from her. But I believe it is regret she can no longer sustain with her madness. She did remark, I am sorry I ruined everything, but I doubt that is sincere. She scarcely turned to look at me during my visit. Seeing her in this state hurt. She is an adult, hence even though I intended to shield her, I have to shield my children from her risky and erratic actions. Other than that, she showed no interest in the hearing. She did not inquire about the state of her friend who had been gravely hurt. She sat there, apparently annoyed, basically inert. This still doesn't make sense. She is now devoid of everything. For what reason has she wrecked her family and caused great suffering for so many people? A buzz and some haphazard sex. Until she has been clean for a lengthy period, I am going totally NC. Simply said, I cannot handle all this insanity. Update 5, many PM'd me to get an update. I simply lacked the energy yesterday when I was supposed to post one. I feel quite gloomy and rather exhausted. I barely sleep, and when I do, dreams haunt me. The good news is the youngsters are improving. My dad is a champion. I have no idea what I would do without him. Just me, him and the children. We visited his cabin to ski a little this weekend. It was fantastic. I hardly contacted my ex at all. I did speak with one of her harpist friends, the one in critical state. She woke up, but she looked absolutely horrible. Her nurse told me she was depressed since no one had cared to check up on her while she was there. They had just turned away from her, after getting in touch with her relatives. I asked the nurse if I may speak with her. I am concerned the person who beat up my ex will come for me and the kids, so she consented. Although I know I shouldn't, I thought I should find out from her what had transpired since my wife started working with them. She asked me first whether I wanted a BJ for $20, so that was not very embarrassing. Instead, I gave her $50 in return for information. Every one of the Heart Pals is a serious drug user, addicts. Against the wishes of the other two, Henrietta brought my wife into their group and persuaded her to do drugs and party with them. To pay for narcotics, they sold sex favors. The main one is Henrietta. Though as she said, it's all bullshit to protect our own imagined egos. They all advocate this strong feminist, my own body approach. We truly prostitute themselves for money to get drugs. First my wife bought into them, and it didn't take long before she developed an addiction like the rest of them. She started selling sex to pay for drugs once she became hooked. Hearing that the person you loved more than anything to feed her drug addiction is not easy. She desired money, hence it makes sense. From what she tells me, meth is mostly involved now. She has stolen, cheated, mistreated and lied to everyone in her life, hence nobody visits her. Nobody wants anything to do with her. She told me, devoid of even a blink, how depressed she felt about surviving. She looks like walking death without cosmetics and hopes nothing for the future. It hurt. Listening to her broke me. I shed a lot of tears for my wife's benefit. I'm not excusing her. She lost since she chose to play with this oink. She shall now pay the cost. I'll go back to her later. She also told me everything about the guys that beat up my ex-wife. Death threats, resistance to arrest, drug possession, prostitution, drug trafficking, child abuse and neglect, DUI, Property damage and auto theft have been charges Henrietta has been assigned. She will most likely go away for a while, at least, I hope she will, as her flight risk has been denied bail. I want to thank all of you who contacted with expertise handling addicts before I begin. Many cautioned me that given the walls closing in, my ex might attempt suicide now. She tried to purposefully OD, and you were right. I had before spoken with her father the great possibility she would have to attempt something. We agreed to keep a close eye on her. Fortunately, she still does not know I have live data from her cell. Saturday we were in the cabin, and I received a message from her that seemed to be a suicide note. She told me about the addiction, the prostitution, how she let everyone down, that she would do the only thing she could, etc. I got her whereabouts as I had the mobile monitor and quickly phoned her dad. Her father raced outside and discovered her comatose on a park seat. She was driven straight to the hospital and pumped. She was rather hypothermic as well. Imagine what would have occurred had he come just a bit later. I shudder. For now they have her on methadone. She can no longer refuse treatment as her father has effectively been declared her guardian. She will undergo a sedated detox. Her father had her forcefully taken to a rehab clinic. I'm not sure when, but most likely this week her father was hired for her abandonment of her children, not for her OD. Giving up your children seems to show that you are not logical, but trying to stop is acceptable. Still, she will receive therapy as fortunately I have not had an opportunity to terminate her life insurance yet. Long as my ex isn't told that I am, I have volunteered my ex-FIL to assist with the finances. The individuals who beat up my wife made me rather afraid as they might come after the children and me. Recall, Henry showed in court conversation logs he thought my wife had sent him. Henry agreed to rectify this once I spoke with him since he gained from the revelation. I'm not sure whether I mentioned this, but Henry is an enraged manly meat mountain. He grew up on a farm lugging goods since he was a small child, hence he resembles Hulk and could split the typical guy in half. Let's just say he is somewhat terrifying if you do not know him. He bends down walking through doors, has a crew cut, and some facial scars. Actually, he is incredibly soft, patient, and compassionate. Though for him it's a last choice, I don't doubt he will use force if he thinks it necessary. Still, he visited the boys' residence, a true way whole by the means. He grabbed the two guys by the neck and informed them that Henrietta had given him the chat logs and that since they hurt someone they knew, they had a choice to make: go with him to the police and confess everything related with the assault, or face him right there and expect some very severe permanent injuries if they chose option 2. He let them know he was rather optimistic they would go with option 2. Apparently, they lacked quick enough access to the police. Obviously, I am not bothered about them anymore. I will shortly be moving after finding a new apartment. Bob once more came through. I am somewhat depressed overall. This is weighty on my spirit. My friends and family keep me going. I know I have to be strong for the kids. For my ex, my heart hurts despite all. Although I still love her, I know we cannot get back together, hence I am not regretful of marrying her. She is not the person she once was, and there is simply too much hurt between us. Before all the suffering lately, we led quite a wonderful life. Without her, I would not have my children. I would not give them up for anything either. I know it will hurt for a long time. Hopefully, I am strong enough to go through it. Oddly enough, knowledge of my wife's addiction has helped my children cope. Talking about mom's illness is much simpler, and she will take a long time to recover. She still loves them, etc., etc. Right now I am exhausted and depressed. We are going to watch Madagascar 3. Henry is here with his kids. I am working to create as many wonderful fresh memories as I can. Henry is doing the same. His and my children now seem to be doing far better. We'll be good, I believe. Appreciate all of your help, everyone. Here, I believe, my last post will be this. Last update. My ex died in a rehabilitation center. She must have taken the medications while there somehow, but nobody really knows how she acquired them. One physician conjectures that she ingested anything like a bag and that it exploded. I will not be answering comments or posting going forward. I appreciate all of the useful comments and ideas you supplied. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.